Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Monday, July 17th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Osoyoos Town Council Chambers. The first item of business would be the adoption of some previous minutes, Committee of the Whole minutes from December the 20th for adoption, regular open minutes from December the 20th for adoption. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Cronmiller, any discussion? Hearing none, adopted by consensus. Was there any business arising from those minutes? Hearing none, we'll go into an introduction of late items, which basically will be adopting the agenda. There are some changes. There were no late items, is that right, Mr. Romanko? No. We have an item there under Business 3, collection of garbage, compostable materials, large items. It's a request for proposal and a report from the Director of Finance. We have some additional information coming at 3 o'clock. So if we get to that item before 3 o'clock, it will come up later on the agenda. Is there any other input into the agenda? Hearing none. Motion to adopt. Councillor Ryan, Cronmiller. Any discussion? Hearing none. Adopted by consensus. The next item of business. We're already at E. E1, delegations. There's a presentation coming from Stantec Consulting, and they're going to present the Climate Action Planning Report to Osoyoos Town Council.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, for having me here today. Just bringing up the slides. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. Yeah, that's better. I think we're on slide 1 there. I'm Amy Seabrook. I'm with Stantec Consulting based out of Vancouver. My colleague Aviva Savelson and I are the consultants that were retained by the town of Osoyoos, as well as the regional district and several other member municipalities to undertake a climate action planning project. And so a little bit about the project. I think most of this presentation will be a review for you folks because we were here back in October to give a draft plan presentation to Mayor and Council. And since then, a few things have happened, an open house and a little bit more input from the Technical Advisory Committee, but there haven't really been any fundamental changes to the plan. And so I'm just here to kind of recap things for you. So just to recap the project, it's been a regional approach to climate action, so a really collaborative approach, which is fairly unique, whereby the regional district led the effort and several of the member municipalities participated. So there was a technical advisory committee that sort of steered the project with staff from each of the member municipalities participating on that. And what we did was create corporate climate action plans for each of the local governments. So a plan to reduce energy and greenhouse gas emissions from municipal operations, as well as a community climate action plan for each of the local governments, as well as one for the electoral areas, and then one for the region as a whole. So what I want to talk to you about today is just the corporate climate action plan and the community climate action plan for the town of Osoyoos. Next slide, please. This is probably a refresher, but I'd just like to state that there are some drivers out there for climate action beyond, what some view as an environmental imperative. The province has done a lot of work in the last few years to set various programs and initiatives and legislation to move these issues forward at the provincial level. First, there was the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Targets Act, known as Bill 44, and that set province-wide targets for greenhouse gas reductions of 33% below 2007 levels by 2020 and 80% below 2007 levels by 2050, and that's a province-wide target. The other more relevant legislation for local governments is the Local Government Statutes Amendment Act, or Bill 27, and that was a requirement for local governments to set greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets for the community as a whole, and to incorporate those targets into their OCPs and regional growth strategies. So that's part of what this climate action planning effort was trying to achieve. And then finally, the BC Climate Action Charter is a voluntary commitment that the town of Osoyoos made to achieve carbon neutral local government, so municipal operations, beginning in 2012. And that's what the corporate component of this climate action planning exercise looked at. Next slide, please. So getting into the corporate plan, a lot of this is just recap, so I haven't included a lot of graphs and charts and whatnot, but we started out by creating a baseline inventory of the town's emissions, energy consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions from their operations. And so in 2009, which was our baseline year, the town consumed 35,000 odd gigajoules of energy, and that translated into about 430 tons of greenhouse gas emissions, which are measured as carbon dioxide equivalents. And that equated to about $680,000 annually in energy spending. And so we use the baseline emissions to work out what the town could possibly be paying in 2012 for offsets, for carbon offsets. So based on 2009 consumption, the town's looking at an expenditure of $10,800 in 2012. So once we had the baseline in place, we held a staff workshop and tried to do a bit of brainstorming with staff from the local governments right across the region that were participating to come up with some ideas for action at the operations level for the corporate plan. Next slide, please. So these are the key actions. There are more actions than this in the plan, but I say that these are the key actions because these are the actions that we feel are going to be the ones that lead you to achieving your corporate reduction targets. And so they're mostly focused on buildings, on your fleet, and on infrastructure, which are the major consumers of energy and the major emitters of greenhouse gas emissions. The other actions that are included in the plan are more around leadership and engagement, and so it's things like engaging staff and creating purchasing policies and things that have a more indirect impact on reducing energy consumption but are nonetheless important things to undertake. So those are the key actions. The next slide. And with those key actions, we believe that the town can target a reduction of 10% below 2009 levels by 2020, and that's seen to be quite a realistically achievable target. Next slide, please. Moving on to the community plan. Again, we didn't create the baseline inventory. The province actually created the baseline inventory on the community side, as they have for every local government in British Columbia. A really unique initiative called the Community Energy and Emissions Inventory. And so it's great that it provides the town with a baseline that's, you're comparing apples to apples with other local governments in terms of their baselines. So energy consumption community-wide in 2007 was 930,000 gigajoules, or 44,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. And we like to crunch the numbers just to show people what the energy spending equates to, and that was about $18 million in 2007, or $3,800 per capita per person in the town of Osoyoos. So once we know the baseline, then we can forecast out what emissions will look like into the future. So we did that to 2030, and there was a projected increase of 5% to 2030, which isn't a steep increase, and I guess that's because it's because of the population growth rates that we use, and I think in the town's case we used a growth rate of 1.5%, so it's kind of a moderate growth rate. Other communities that are growing really rapidly see a real spike in emissions by 2030, and conversely other communities that we were working with, such as Caramios and Princeton, that have quite low projected growth rates, actually would see a decrease in emissions. So the town's kind of in the middle there with an increase of 5%. Mm-hmm. Next slide. So common to all of the community climate action plans are 8 regional strategies. And I guess they span a lot of different areas, but there's a strong focus again on buildings, on land use, and on transportation, because once again, that's where you find the bulk of the emissions in your inventory, and that's where you have the most opportunity to reduce. So other things are in there, such as solid waste, but really we expect to see the bulk of emissions reductions coming as a result of great land use planning and good energy efficient buildings and transportation that follows suit. So 8 common regional strategies, but what is unique to the town of Osoyoos plan then is their local actions, and there's 30 or more local actions, and they define in more detail how the town intends to implement the regional strategies. And there's sort of three types of actions in the local actions: education and outreach. And I won't go into detail on all the actions, as there is 30 of them, but just to give you an example, in the town's plan, an example of an education and outreach action is to create an energy efficient buildings checklist. And so that would provide developers or people that are wanting to make retrofits to their homes with the sense of some information, some education around what could they do, what's possible. And that's something that you could hand out at the permitting desk. An example of an incentive is to potentially look into offering some kind of building permit rebate program for people that are building more energy efficiently. And then on the policy and regulation side, something like creating development permit areas where you can define a certain type of energy efficiency that you want to achieve within that area. Those are possibilities and all things that the town can consider doing. And the reason we differentiate between the three types of actions is because they have a varying impact on how much you will be able to reduce energy and emissions. And so typically we would say that if you were just to do education and outreach alone, you might expect to reach 5% of the population or something like that. Whereas if you look at offering incentives, more people are likely to uptake on those actions, and you might see somewhere in the neighborhood of 25-35% uptake. Whereas if you regulate, you know that the bulk of the population will follow suit. So we try to make a balance of the types of actions that are in the plan. Next slide. So that leads us to the community targets, and what's proposed is a 20% per capita reduction over 2007 levels by 2020, and a 30% per capita reduction over 2007 levels by 2030. And you'll see up there on the slide that we've translated that into total, so absolute. I think it's important to show what the absolute reduction is, because that's ultimately what we're aiming for here. And so that's a 1% reduction by 2020 and a 5% reduction by 2030. Next slide. So as I said, what's different since the last time we came to speak to council is that we did hold an open house. So that was in November of last year. And turnout was about 10 people, which I won't say is poor turnout. It seemed to be about average turnout for the open houses in the region. We had some good discussion. Obviously, the folks that turn out for these things are interested in these issues. So we gave a presentation, had a question and answer period. There were poster boards around the room. Fortis BC partnered with us to offer giveaways. So there were free light bulbs and various material and information around energy efficiency, stuff that people can do in their own homes. We collected feedback via a short survey, and I'm happy to report that, generally speaking, there was support for the actions within the community plan, and we had feedback that the targets were just right. So, that may be that the person or two that decided to fill out the feedback form felt that they were just right, and, on either end you get people that feel, for the most part, I found that people that turned out for the open house, because they were so supportive of these issues, found that targets were, not strong enough, and they come out because they want to see more action. But I think in general, there was the sense that we kind of hit the mark. And these were targets that are realistic for the town to work towards. So the next steps, we're hoping that council adopts the plans and that the town staff are then given the mandate to move forward with implementation. As I said at the beginning, the Local Government Act, Bill 27, requires that you put the greenhouse gas reduction targets into your OCP. So moving forward, there'll be an OCP amendment to incorporate those community-wide targets into the OCP. And then the town is going to begin implementation. And my understanding is that the staff plan to incorporate the actions in the town's business plan, which is a good way to go about things, making sure that they're planned and budgeted for on an annual basis. The community plan contains a monitoring framework, so recognizing that it's important that you're able to track your progress over time. The corporate plan doesn't contain a monitoring framework, but corporate emissions inventories are not difficult to put together, and we will provide the town with a tool, a spreadsheet tool that we use to compile the corporate inventory, and that's something that can be put together annually moving forward. So that'll allow you to track your progress. And then both plans identify some funding and partnership opportunities that are going to help advance these actions. And I gather too that the town's just embarked on a sustainability planning process, which I'm sure will, mesh quite well with what we've done here, energy and climate change being probably a smaller component of a much larger sustainability strategy. But I think you're well positioned to move forward with this plan. Next slide. That's all I have to say. If you have any questions.
Well, thanks, Amy. I'll get the questions rolling a bit here. When we were looking at that $10,000 figure, that's from Osoyoos to Osoyoos. Can we provide the mitigation for that funding?
The $10,000 figure is for carbon offsets. So beginning in 2012, when there's the requirement to become carbon neutral, anything that you haven't been able to reduce, you'll have to offset. And so we're saying that if you're in 2012, if you're still emitting what you were in 2009, you'd be paying about $10,000.
To who?
To whomever you decide to buy offset credits from, which is the province hasn't been, they haven't made any requirements around where you buy your offset credits. And there is more information coming out.
We could buy them from ourselves by
potentially
planting a forest somewhere, or planting a forest here, or doing that type of mitigation. Is that? It's
hard to say definitively right now, but the province at the UBCM conference this past September came out with some additional guidance, and there's about 4 different community scale projects that they're looking at that they're saying communities can implement, and you could potentially buy your offset credits there or get your offset credits through that project. So things like retrofitting homes and I believe landfill gas capture, and I think I've given specific examples in the plan. Yeah.
Council? Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for your report, and I guess the reporting back is all a big part of this, and keeping the town citizens aware of what's happening, where we're going with it. So, and it does really tie in with that sustainability program. A very good weekend. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your time.
The next item under delegations is that's also going to be postponed a bit. It will be happening today. The Osoyoos royalty, we will be glad to have them here when school, bringing us to item F, water matters. Can we deal with this without a water counselor here? No. Okay, so we will, you're comfortable with that being postponed, Mr. Zackel? You're the financial man? Okay, so that will come up at our next regular meeting. Thank you. Correspondence under G, good letter. We've been looking for some assistance up at the local secondary school. Councillor Cronmiller, do you want to walk us through this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunate that Councillor Chadsey isn't here, only by phone. But I know that she was involved in this committee, and they have been working hard to look at ways and means to upgrade the theater at the high school. And as a result, they applied for some grant funding, and this letter indicates that through the local government program services that they were successful. The application in round 2 of the 2010 School Community Connections supporting Neighborhood Learning Centers program, they have reviewed our submission and are pleased to advise that our project for theater upgrade at Osoyoos Secondary School has been approved in the amount of $30,000, including $25,000 from the main grant and $5,000 from the additional grant opportunity. A check for $22,500 representing 75% of the total approved grant will follow shortly from the BC School Trustees Association, and the balance of the grant will be eligible for release upon satisfactory completion of the final report, form, and financial summary. Also to note, the final report is due within 30 days of the completion of your project and no later than January 31st, 2012. And about the extent of it, I also think that Councillor Ryan might be thrilled with this. maybe we'll see some new seats in our theater amongst some of the things that we could use there. So I would move that we receive this report for information.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes is seconder. Any further discussion? Hearing none, that will be received by consensus. Moving us into bylaws, and the first bylaw will be OCP Amendment Bylaw 12-1230.09. Councillor Ryan, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to present this. This is another step forward in our fire hall and our Southeast Meadowlark neighborhood program. So basically, when we last discussed this in December, we directed staff to prepare an official community plan and zoning amendment bylaw for the new fire hall to be located on the northern portion of the Richter property to clear the way for an application to the Agricultural Land Commission for release of lands from the Agricultural Land Reserve. And so we have, they have done so. We have a bylaw with maps that indicate where the fire hall and its adjacent training area will be. And council decided at that time to add approximately half an acre of land to the training area beside the fire hall. So there will be public hearing advertisements about this, and we will be having a public hearing, and at the same time we may be having a special open meeting directly following that for the purpose of giving second and third reading to the bylaws. And then following that second and third reading, whenever it happens, we will send these off to the Ministry of Transportation for their approval after we've given second and third reading and await their positive response. So the implications of this are tend to be positive. It will allow for the development of a new fire hall and improve services to the public, and it will advance our new fire hall in accordance with the operational strategies that we have developed in our business plan. So we are now being asked, Mr. Mayor, to give a reading to the OCP and the zoning amendment bylaws for the first time and to schedule a public hearing. And that public hearing is proposed for the Thursday, the 10th of February at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. So is it okay to combine these into one?
Yes, please.
One motion. So I would therefore move that first reading to OCP Amendment Bylaw 1230.09 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1085.84, and that these bylaws be forwarded to a public hearing to be set on Thursday, the 10th of February 2011 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers.
Councillor Rhodes is seconder. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Aye. I thought I better go to a hand vote just to make sure you were still there, Marg. Thank you. That is passed. That brings us to the Building Code Administration Amendment Bylaw number 1251.01. We thought Mr. Padgett was going to be here, but whoever, I can present it if you want. Or it's okay. If he wants to come for the next one, I'll do this report. Okay, this is a Building Code Administration Amendment Bylaw 1251.01. On December the 6th, 2010, Council gave first, second, and third readings to Building Code Administration Amendment Bylaw 1251.01/2010. Primary goal of this bylaw is to implement a building permit fee reduction of 5% when registered professionals, brackets architects or engineers, provide letters of assurance to the town as required by the BC Building Code and the Local Government Act. On December the 20th, 2010, Council rescinded third reading and gave third reading as amended to Bylaw 1251.01 to clarify Section 4 of the bylaw, which stated that Bylaw 1251 be amended to correct some existing housekeeping items such as punctuation, grammar, incorrect numbering, and the omission of a partial sentence. The revised Section 4 of Bylaw 125101 attached clearly indicates the correct numbered section in the section of Bylaw 1251 that had the omission of a partial sentence. There's a recommendation here that Council adopt Building Code Administration Bylaw 125101. I can't make any resolution. Councillor Rhodes, seconded by Councillor Cronmiller. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. That is passed. Thank you. Am I proceeding, Mr. Cunningham? Okay, thank you. Amendment to Building Code Administration Bylaw number 1251. Building Bylaw 1251 does not allow for a fee reduction of building permit costs for complex building where there have been letters of assurance submitted by a registered professional architect for his registered professional engineers and consultants. Bylaw 1251 relies on the letters as assurance, the letters of assurance as proof that the design and construction substantially comply with the building code. Prior to the adoption of Bylaw 1251, it was recommended that the town offer a free reduction for letters of assurances submitted by the registered professionals when associated with complex buildings. A thorough review of Bylaw 1251 has also uncovered some typographical housekeeping errors that should be corrected under this amendment.
That was background in the previous motion.
Oh, this is when we did it.
First time,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. No, thank you. I was doing so well.
You were doing very well.
Well, considering that we weren't doing these. Okay, get me into. Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
Soil deposit and removal bylaw, which is number 3 on the bylaws.
Oh, and we have Mr. Paget here. Well, just
Good
in the
afternoon,
nick of
Mayor and
time.
Council. Okay, this should be pretty quick. Soil deposit removal bylaw is now complete. The revised documents include some of the changes that were suggested at a committee of the whole meeting of October 18th. We now have a legal opinion on the one major change that was proposed by Councillor Ryan. The proposed change was no person may deposit or remove soil as to impede or obstruct public access along Osoyoos Lake below the high water mark in front of an owner's property. We are much waiting. We finally got a legal opinion back that tells us that, and I put the highlights in here in the report as to why we don't feel it's the proper place for that type of a regulation. But we do feel it could be dealt with zoning bylaw and probably already dealt with in our development permit and land use bylaw. And so, having said that, we haven't included that in the final draft that's ready for first, second, and third reading. According to the Local Government Act, after first, second, and third reading of this bylaw, we have to package it up, send it off to the province for their review. All soil deposit removal bylaws have to be reviewed by the province. Once we get first, second, and third reading, package it up and send it off to the province for their blessing.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Yeah. Council? Recommendation?
Yes, I would move that we give this first 3 readings, first, second, third reading to this, so that it can be forwarded to the province for review.
Seconder, Councillor Rhodes. Discussion on this, please. Councillor Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm very happy to see this. I know that it is something that has been hovering out there, and I'm delighted to see it. I just would ask Mr. Paget if he could just expand a little bit more on the fact that our zoning and development powers exist or will exist to cover this kind of eventuality.
Well, I would think that on any development permit application within a development permit area, would identify those lands in a riparian assessment before we get as far as taking development permit approval process council. So those kind of things would be dealt with right off the bat, and we're sort of delegated by the province that work. Yes, those development permit proposals for riparian. So anything that would interfere with public access, like free access past the front of the property, would probably be dealt with development permits now. It wasn't in the past, but it is now. So I think we can work with staff on that to see whether we need to come up with wording to our existing bylaw or development permit guidelines, or whether that wording is already there, different guys. But I think the way we process development permit applications now, I don't think it's a problem for it, as it has been.
Good. Okay, thank you.
This will certainly be a good tool for our planning department. Any other discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Getting into the business section of the meeting, under I business number 1, there's a nice one here. It's a bus replacement under the gas tax funding. Mr. Davis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the bus replacement for our gas tax funding, I was asked to bring some information back to council regarding the emissions of propane related to gasoline, and also about any compromises in a warranty that we may proceed to do if we did that aftermarket option. Propane, according to the information that we did some research on, is 25% less expensive than gasoline, but also emits 26% less greenhouse gas emissions. In terms of the warranty, with an aftermarket edition, it will not be affected as long as we state from the beginning that we want the fuel preparation package, meaning that if we want to do that, the heads will be applicable to both propane and gas as that type of fuel system. In terms of our budget implications, our current budget was $75,000. The lowest possible quote that we had when we originally put this out for quote was $73,000. With the aftermarket edition, we're looking at $7,500 edition, or as a pure propane edition, we're looking at $14,000 extra. So the options before us are to tender a gas-powered unit as per the original grant application, which would have been just gas only, to tender a gas-powered unit and install a suitable aftermarket propane system at a later time. Option 3, to tender a pure propane unit. Or option 4, to tender a bus that will be gas-powered with an aftermarket propane system added, with the intention that we order the new propane-compatible engine in order to maintain a warranty. And staff is recommending that we do option number 4.
Thank you. Council, any questions on this recommended proposal? Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Director Davis, I know you always hate hearing from people like me. I certainly understand and appreciate the amount of time and effort that you put into preparing this report and gathering up the information. However, I have to state at this point that I'm not there yet. I'm having such a hard time with the purchase of this technology, you know, and us as a community striving to reduce greenhouse gases and that kind of thing, that there's not another alternative available to us somewhere that would come close to or within the confines of this grant money. And you know, we listened to the evaluation from Stantec at the beginning of the meeting, and you know, we got some pretty hardcore goals when it comes to that kind of thing. And you know, please don't take this personally. This is not a personal thing. This is me criticizing you know, the cost of buying into this technology. And I know we have a deadline date of the end of June on this, I believe.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of asking for an extension on that while we look for other alternatives. I've never sensed that there's an urgency to buy this bus. We don't have an urgent, overpowering need, and perhaps if we are granted an extension, or if that option is available, we could maybe look at some other alternatives or whatever. And so that was, I know that's a long involved question, but that was kind of the.
Thank you. The original grant application deadline was December 31st of 2010. We asked for a new extension, which would give us 6 more months to do some more work to make a decision or to be better prepared. And they gave us that June 31st or June 30th. There's nothing saying that we can't ask for another extension. I'm not sure what else we can pursue or other items that we can do to look at other options that we haven't already looked at to bring forward, other than some of the other ones which we've already done to this date.
So I think Councillor Rhodes is looking at something beyond fossil fuel. So have we done any exploratory work down that road?
The only other one that we've done would be the pure hybrid engine, and we did get some quotes on that, which were almost double to what we were budgeted for. And we did make a decision to say that that was a little bit too much. We did look at hydrogen fuel, and the biggest thing with hydrogen fuel was places to actually fuel up. There's very few. There's none in the Osoyoos area, as far as I know. When we did our research, there was none. There were some on the coast. And besides gas, propane, the propane was our best option in terms of reduced greenhouse gas emissions.
Rhodes, any?
So could we kind of maneuver around this thing a little bit, and perhaps I'm not sure if the amount is definitive. Is there anything that we could do to increase our investment amount to kind of narrow that gap to move towards the hybrid situation? Or
I think the only thing at this point, and it's a good thing our Director of Finance is here, is to budget that amount with the option of going with the hybrid. If that was the case, we could still probably make this work under those conditions for this year with this grant. The other item, because this is not just a grant that we received for this particular unit, was also for our windows at the Sonora Center, which is currently tendered out and closes on the 4th of February. So we wouldn't want to extend it beyond any time frame for that to be interrupted either.
Our commitment to the greenhouse gas reductions in our community, if we don't achieve our goals, are going to come with a cost to our community as well. We got the figure at 10,000. I'm not sure if how accurate that is, or whether it's a definitive figure or not. But every little bit narrows that gap a little bit to help us achieve those goals. And having a hybrid vehicle as part of our fleet, either we're going to do it now or we're going to be forced to do it in the future in one way or another.
Thanks, Councillor Rhodes. Looking for a recommendation still. Councillor Ryan, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of recap for myself, if for no one else. First of all, in the desire to have a hybrid vehicle, it depends on what fuels the hybrid uses. A gas propane is a hybrid vehicle. So, but I don't understand that if the base is $73,000 for a gas only, you're saying a pure propane would be an additional $14,000 on top of that?
It would have been around $14,000 more than what a traditional gas-powered unit would be. Right. Yes, that's correct.
And yet, to get one that is propane ready and do an aftermarket conversion is less.
That's correct.
It's the same. It's the same as gas only.
It would be a gas-powered unit with that specific.
That special.
That's correct.
Special engine with the valves and so on ready,
yeah.
and then another $77,000 or so to
$7,500.
$7,500 to convert it. Yeah, okay. So the issue becomes, I mean, if we want to have both, we could have propane and gas, and or we could go, which to me seems a bit more flexible than just the propane. But and it makes sense, seems to make sense to do it in the aftermarket rather than have it factory.
If you did it factory, like it would be just pure propane.
Oh, pure propane. Okay.
It wouldn't have the gas option.
Uh-huh.
That's correct.
Do we have any idea about the reliability of the aftermarket conversion if we have the right engine head versus propane? I mean, are they?
According to the people that I spoke to in relation to the quotes that they received, which was the quote that was also put in this package for this council meeting, included that aftermarket edition.
Right.
And they're saying that it is as good as the factory, engine type thing.
And it would give us, we could do it, in the new budget year or something like that. We could do it relatively soon, depending on our.
That's correct.
On our budgeting. Okay. Well, I would like to put on the table then, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that we not sure which one of these options it is, but that we have I guess it's number 4, which is what you're proposing. Gas-powered unit with the aftermarket propane system added, provided that we have the propane-compatible engine in order to obtain the warranty. So I think that's your number 4.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I would so move.
Okay, seconder on that? Councillor Cronmiller. Further discussion on that? Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I seconded the motion, and I think it's time to move with this. A couple of questions I had was that the hybrid vehicle beyond gas and propane, there's a different hybrid beyond that. There was gas and
Battery powered?
battery powered.
Yes,
And
correct.
how much was that one different? Do you remember?
123,000.
Okay. So I think it's well beyond the value of taxpayer to go to that. And I have some concerns with aftermarket additions to a vehicle. Does Ford agree to the aftermarket attachment thing?
Absolutely.
And they would stand behind the vehicle
Yeah, and that
even
was-
with this attachment?
Yep.
Okay. Then I'd be prepared to support the motion.
Anything further? Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. I'm going to speak against the motion. I feel that we have not exhausted all of the possibilities. With regard to it, I'd like to know how a vehicle like that, and I have to clarify, when I speak of hybrid, I was referring to the gas battery combination, not the propane. I should have clarified that. Simply because there are businesses, I believe, that are trying to get into this type of technology. We talked extensively about one of them at the last UBCM regarding experimenting with municipalities. We've had a visit from a company that brought an electric vehicle here. It said to us inconclusively that they would be willing to partner with a municipality like us in an endeavor. And, it's a pretty fancy bus we're looking at. And, it's a matter of priorities. The greenhouse gas emission things, I repeat myself, either we're going to do it now or we're going to do it later. And could we reduce the size of that bus down and bring those margins a little bit closer together? I believe that we can, and that would be the reason for speaking against the motion.
Councillor Chadsey, any comments, please?
That I am not sure of for an annual inspection or anything like that. But I did speak to some people in Penticton just to make sure that we do have somebody in a close proximity if we do need any kind of maintenance.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion, which was the recommended motion number 4? Director Davis.
I would just like to speak to Councillor Rhodes' last comments. The last hybrid number that we got for the 123 was a reduced number already. Like, it was, what we're looking at is a 16 passenger plus 2 wheelchair area for accessibility purposes. And the number that we got, because the hybrid system takes up that extra capacity for the batteries and whatnot, would reduce that by 4 seats. So then we're at that point even, we're looking at 12 seats plus 2. So it is already a little bit lower than what we were looking at originally, just for that.
Okay, hearing nothing further, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I guess you can start ordering your bus, Mr. I know you're at the podium, but we do have royalty. Beauty before age, Gerald. Okay. Mr. Davis, with my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you is a letter and correspondence that we received from the RDOS in relation to the Osoyoos Arena Conversion and Service Establishment Bylaw, number 2540. What we have before us is a bylaw that was established to deal with the services at the arena as per our agreement with the regional district. In the past, this was done through a supplementary letters patent, and because the limit that was set up in those letters are no longer applicable, a new bylaw was formed. So what the regional district is asking us to do is to give a council resolution to support Bylaw 2540 and proceed from there.
Thank you. Now, this is all as clear as mud when we got this back and forth with the regional district, and when you start replacing supplementary letters patent is always, we usually put that one into Councillor Ryan's category here. But so we're happy with where this finally is now.
Yeah, it's been given 3 readings through the regional district, and once they get our blessing, I guess it will be adopted. Yeah.
Council, any discussion on this? Councillor Ryan, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll defer to
Councillor Chadsey.
Chadsey.
That has been changed. That was an error on part of the writer from the regional district. That is also just, I think that what we're looking at right now was just sent as information only. That was an amendment to Bylaw 2540.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Chadsey. It would appear that we don't have to make an amendment. That's already been done, and the bylaw that we are approving is, in fact, the correct amended bylaw. Davis, is that?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Ryan.
Thank
yes,
you.
Please.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to get this. The thing that about 2540, is it 2540? The one that we want to, 2540. The thing that puzzled me about this was in Section 7, the limit, it talks about, requisitioning annually the greater of 130,500 or 0.064 per thousand of taxable value of land and improvements. And yet they were talking earlier about wanting to set the limit at 500,000 and the fact that 400,000 had been the average. And I don't understand, you know, what all these numbers, how they relate to each other.
I can try to answer that.
Okay.
In Bylaw 2540, which was a new bylaw set up because of the limit wasn't set high enough in the original supplementary letters patent, they set this limit at 130,500 or greater, and it's always been greater than that. Now, I don't know if the 130,500 was the original limit that was set in the supplementary letters patent, but that's what I've been told how they had to proceed with this. The amendment, which is going to be done through an alternate approval process, will make it to a maximum of $500,000. That's also been read 3 times.
Okay. So what will we realize once this the dust settles and all these have been approved? What will we realize on an annual basis from Area A?
Once we, if you look on the budget that was forwarded along with this, the average that we took or would do for this was 460,000 over the last 5 years, and the maximum right now is at 500,000. My understanding, if the requisition or for the services for the arena is more than 500,000, it would have to go to an alternate approval process to get those funds.
So it says Area A is going to donate. Their requisition will total 117,139.
And the town of Osoyoos 382,
right.
And Area A and the town of Osoyoos as all being part of the regional district.
And that 117,139, does that represent the same or more or less than got last year?
That would probably be around the same, and that was based on assessment, as it was stated there.
So the key thing is that we're converting from this letters patent to a different requisition
That's
formula.
correct. Yep.
I think I see a little light at the end of the tunnel.
When we're looking at that $500,000 limit, like what happens, and we've been normally throwing in 460,000. What happens when we need a chiller? I think I've calling a couple of them, or some other compressor, or one of those expensive pieces. You're saying that we'd have to go to reverse referendum, alternate referendum?
Yeah, and my understanding is if that fails, it would go to a referendum. So we would need that much time in advance. In emergency situations, maybe that other monies would have to be found to do whatever. Otherwise, it would just revert back to what's in the original bylaw.
And being the good budgeters that we are, Mr. Zackel, we would have all that money set aside in reserves anyway. Is that correct? Okay.
The good thing about it is that we do plan 5 years. So we do have our 5-year financial plan, and those items are listed, so we should be okay.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you. One more question, Mr. Mayor. So the 500,000, which is the limit, I mean, it's either 5,000 or this amount per thousand of that really relates not to us, but it relates only to Area A. Is that correct?
That would be correct. What we are part Area A and the town of Osoyoos is included as part of the regional district. So that would be the total in my understanding on this.
So the margin between what's being requisitioned now and the limit is getting pretty narrow, isn't it?
Very narrow. That was my comment. And the other one I think people have to understand is that this is a regional district facility. This is not a town of Osoyoos facility. So maybe that would help you, Councillor Ryan, get a handle on it, get that flipped around. Their facility, we're in the second position on. Looking for the recommended resolution. Option 1. Do we have that? Councillor Cronmiller? Councillor Rhodes. Any further discussion? Councillor Chadsey? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Councillor Chadsey. Okay, now we'll get away from arenas and chillers and bring in the Osoyoos royalty. Give us an update.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mrs. Marcelli.
My name is Ann Marcelli. I am one of the co-coordinators of the Osoyoos Royalty Program, along with Kathy Baskett. And we are very fortunate to have an additional member of our team, and that's Allison Baskett, who will be presenting this afternoon. And then we have the 3 royalty team members, so the girls will introduce themselves as they come up.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just lift it up a little.
Do we have a clicker?
Ended.
Oh, okay. All right. Right into it? Okay. Next slide then, please. So this afternoon, we're going to go over with you a little bit about the Osoyoos Royalty Program, the benefits the program brings to Osoyoos, the community participation of the girls, our travel throughout BC, expenses and income, and the community grant. And you can just, they come up each point, so maybe you can click them all up if you want, if that's easiest. So the Osoyoos Royalty Program has been a part of the community for over 60 years. It provides young ladies with a chance to learn leadership skills, self-development, and participate in community events. The girls learn new skills including speech, interview, and etiquette. And the Osoyoos Royalty team travels throughout the province promoting the town of Osoyoos and also participates in many local events. So some of the benefits that the program brings to Osoyoos is, as I said, representatives throughout BC and also within Osoyoos. They are positive role models for peers and for young children. You can bring it all up. Sorry. They can contribute to connections between the elementary and high schools and the community, develop connections between the candidates and businesses, which sometimes results in job connections and workforce preparation. They are positive, or the program provides positive activities for teenagers year-round, and we assist with many local events and functions. There's a team of volunteers who are willing to work with service agencies and businesses within the community. And the program showcases and advertises for the businesses who support our cause, generate goodwill for sponsors, and the opportunity for the businesses to become more community involved. The team also has a policy to buy local whenever possible. We try to support Osoyoos businesses as much as possible. We establish and develop pride and knowledge of Osoyoos in the minds of the young ladies, which includes the organizations and the businesses within Osoyoos. The candidates actually have to do a local knowledge area test as part of their candidacy. And we also provide a monthly article in the Osoyoos Times. And one of the last things that we do is we bring other communities to the town of Osoyoos. Last year for the pageant, we had over 46 ambassadors and chaperones that attended Osoyoos. Now I'm going to pass it over to the ladies who will talk about the benefits, the community participation that the program has participated in.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shelby LePage, and I am one of the Osoyoos Princesses. The community participation. In January, we do a Family Literacy Day, United Church Tea, Olympic Torch Relay Celebration, and February, Destination Osoyoos Showcase. March, Adam Fiesta Hockey Tournament. April, the Easter Extravaganza. Catholic Women's Tea, Celebration of Traditions Powwow. Princess Party for grade 1 and 2 girls. In May, we do the Market on Main's opening ceremony. We attend town council meeting. June, we have the Tim Hortons Camp Day, Relay for Life, Mrs. Soy's pageant, hosting, visiting royalty, museum opening. July, we do the Cherry Fiesta, pancake breakfast, parade, community luncheon, and band shell activities. And in August, we help out the deserts. Thank you.
I'm Brianne Ellingson. I'm the Osoyoos Ambassador for 2010-2011. In October, we do the Sir Optimus fundraiser, along with the Halloween Howl. And then in November, we help out with the Remembrance Day service. And then in December, we do the Light Up Parade, the Santa's Breakfast the next morning, and then Miss Santa's Night Out we also help out with. Some of the other activities we do during the year are the various months we assist with the Elks Bingo. We also do the 50-50 at the Osoyoos hockey game for the Coyotes. We also give speeches at the Sir Optimus and the Rotary Club. And then we do the Osoyoos Credit. Our candidates always help out with the Osoyoos Credit Union at their special events. We also assist at the opening of the new Bylaw back then. And we have done interviews with the local radio station and the Destination Osoyoos station. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Brianne, is it fun?
It is a lot of fun doing everything that we do. I've enjoyed it so much.
Great, great.
Good afternoon. My name is Harmon. I am also one of the Osoyoos Princesses. So over the past 5 years, we've attended a lot of pageants. Some of them have been Merit for the Town Pageant and BC Ambassadors, Barrier, Chase, Kamloops, Kelowna, Logan Lake, Upper Nicola, Lower Nicola, Lytton, Nakusp, New Denver, Revelstoke, and Summerland. Some of the other pageants and parades we've attended have been Oliver, Beachland, Penticton, Princeton, Canal, Trail, Vernon, White Rock, Cranbrook, and Castlegar. Thank you.
Great. That's been a lot of traveling.
Yes, it has been. It's not as much now, but during the summer, traveled a lot.
Well, I just like to say I can see a lot of improvement in your speech delivery and in your poise since I saw you when you were crowned. So congratulations. I can see the change.
Okay, this chart on the screen shows our travel costs for the past 6 years. And the costs vary each year dependent on the distance that we travel, whether or not we have to stay overnight and pay for hotels, and the number of girls that we have participating each year. And we have a handout of the cost for the breakdown of the cost for 2010, which we'll give you at the end. And then the next chart shows you that the average cost per community per person. And as you can see, the costs have increased each year. Our sources of income are our sponsorship fees, which mainly go towards the training of the new candidates, the community grant, which we put towards travel costs, and then the balance of those two items and everything else has to be fundraised by the girls and the coordinators. And this is our entire group. So as you can imagine, fundraising is difficult to do when you just have 3 girls and 2 adults, but we do the best we can. And for the past, since 2006, we've received $5,000 from the town. $3,000 goes towards program expenses, usually travel, and $2,000 is reserved for bursaries for the girls. And these they claim when they have completed their year, and they have to show that they're enrolled in an education program before they can get their bursary. And the costs have increased every year. Osoyoos no longer has a float, a community float. So we were hoping that maybe some of the float dollars could go towards our costs for parade participation. And we do take part in parades in about 40% of the communities that we visit. And when we travel, we promote Osoyoos. We have a sign that goes on the back of our vehicle showing where we're traveling to, where we're coming from. We also have magnetic signs that we put on cars, as you can see in the picture, for parades. And the girls make speeches at all of the communities that we go to promoting Osoyoos, and we try to highlight different things each time. And also our participation in community events and one-on-one interactions. And thank you very much for allowing us to present. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to ask them. And the girls have the handout for you.
Thank you, Ms. Basket. Thanks, Shelby.
Yeah.
And the application would already be into our financial, yes, it's being worked on. Okay, well, don't be too late. Council, any questions of the organization or of the girls? Councilor Ryan, please.
I'd be, well, congratulations to all of you, and it's certainly nice to hear from you, and very impressive workload that you've had over the past year. What kinds of things do you tell other communities about Osoyoos?
Well, one of the things we always do is we always invite them back, and we always usually tell them about like an event that's coming up and invite them back to the Osoyoos and what it's.
Great.
The other thing to say, if there's one of the members that don't go, we always make sure that we mention them, not like make sure they're not left out.
Thanks, Harmon.
We also tell them about the town slogan and some of the other things about our town, like some of the events that we have during the summer, and that it is Canada's warmest destination, or Canada's warmest welcome, actually. And that we invite them back during the summer to come to do the boating and to join our cherry fiesta.
Well, thank you very much, and I just think I know there's some royalty in there and that, but I called you all ambassadors probably, because you are really ambassadors for the town. And I know there's queen princesses and things there, but really, really great to have you representing Osoyoos. I'm looking at the workload that you've covered, and it's really large. So thanks a lot for doing a good job. Keep having fun. We'll soon be back into the parade and the smiling waves again, and so enjoy it while you're doing it. That's for sure. Thank you very much. We are still waiting for the folks from Penticton from the regional district, so we'll just keep moving right along here. And did we finish with Mr. Davis? He finished him all off. I think so. Did that? Okay, that would bring us to business number 4. And this is to bring forward letters of appeal from property tax owners with respect to the penalty that was applied to their outstanding taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received one letter from a property owner in November of last year requesting that council consider reversing the penalty on his property taxes. His rationale was that he had mailed it with ample time for it to get here. However, in all of our notifications on our property taxes, on our property tax inserts that we provide in there, we basically state that postmarks are not an acceptable means of payment method. We give a number of payment opportunities, including paying at their bank through electronic bank transfers, through bill payment system, those type of aspects. As well, we give ample time for the property owners to make their payments. I think these bills went out mid-May of this year. Property tax due date was 2nd of July. I also personally went to Canada Post at the end of the day on the last day of collection to ensure that there was nothing left at Canada Post that we hadn't processed. This payment did come in 1 day late. However, our bylaw states that anything after the date subject to the. So my recommendation is that we not waive the penalty, because basically potential that could open up to our bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Councilors, any questions on this? Councilor? No? Okay, sure.
I'll make a motion that we deny the request to waive the penalty.
No, I've been, Councilor Ryan is seconder. Any further dialogue on that, Councilor Cronmiller?
I've sat in this chair for 5 years, I think, and every year we get at least 1 or 2 of these. And it's unfortunate that the mail produces the product that they do, but they do, and I think the onus is on everyone to ensure that their tax notice and their check is in the mail or delivered here before the date that it's due. Everyone is in the same situation, and for the town to do its business and to provide the service that it does, we need the finances to do it. And it's imperative on the public to make sure they get their money here on time.
Councilor Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak in favor of the motion as well. I would like to remind this individual of another opportunity, and our finance people are more than happy to accept your payments throughout the year to help your budget. And those of us that use online banking, you can make a proportional deposit every month if you want. There's many methods of ensuring that these funds are here and paid on time. And this is a regrettable situation. I can't explain it. However, the rules are the rules, and they are very clear and concise.
Thank you. Any further input? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That denial, or that waive the penalty has. Well, I see that Cameron is here. So.
If I could do my report, and then I'll have Cam do his presentation.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Zuck.
So basically, the collection of garbage, compostable materials, large items, collection and processing, and marketing of recyclable materials. We had done in coordination with the regional district and member municipalities of the city of Penticton, District of Summerland, Village of Karameas, Town of Oliver, and Town of Osoyoos. The regional district did a request for proposals for us. This is basically for the collection of solid waste, compostable materials, and recyclables for the town and member areas. Our current collection contract expires June 30th of 2011. In this new RFP, we wanted to give the new contractors time to purchase the new equipment that's required for this RFP. And in the RFP and in the dialogue that we've had with the contractors, we were instructed that it would take up to 6 months for the new equipment to arrive. All of this was to ensure that we were getting the highest opportunity for greenhouse gas reductions. Even though this is a contractor doing the work for the community, this is still greenhouse gases that are expended in our community and member areas. In the overview that I've got here, the garbage collection and blue bag recycling are mandatory for all single-family residential properties, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes in the town of Osoyoos. Our current level of service provided by BFI is a weekly curbside 1-bag limit for garbage collection, bi-weekly curbside, unlimited blue bag recycling. Large item collection is one event per year of one item. Yard and garden waste collection, we had 9 events which were unlimited from March through November, so one time per month. And we had glass collection for 4 events which were unlimited as well in the months of March, June, September, and December. This RFP closed November 16th of this last year with the following proposals submitted for consideration. They were BFI, Miller Waste Services, Evergreen Ecological Services, OK Environmental Waste Systems, Mterra Environmental, Smithwright Disposals, Waste Management, and Okanagan Waste. Those 8 proponents were further shortlisted to 3 based on, the majority of it was based on cost. Those were reduced further down to BFI, Miller Waste Systems, and Evergreen Ecological. After the evaluations were all completed, BFI ranked the highest out of the 3 proponents. As the City of Penticton has awarded their portion of the contract now to BFI, Miller Waste Systems, which was the second in line, is no longer a viable opportunity for the town of Osoyoos. And likewise with the regional district, BFI was the top organization of choice as well. And with them not being in it, then again, Miller wasn't in the running. All of the proposals were analyzed considering the minimum requirements for the town as specified in the RFP. During the analysis of the RFP, the town of Osoyoos, RDOS, and member municipalities met frequently and jointly to review the individual analysis and to ensure best value process is expanded to include all these areas where possible. And like I said earlier, City of Penticton has already awarded theirs. The RFP had requested the companies to provide options for a 5-year and a 7-year contract, include best practices, new equipment for collection of materials, and look at options for moving forward for being able to accept organic waste in the very near future. BFI was able to provide pricing for 5 years. However, they had stated that due to the volatility in fuel prices, they'd be willing to negotiate new rates closer to the end of the 5-year term for an additional 2 years if the town wished so. In Osoyoos, Oliver, and electoral areas A, C, and D, BFI has proposed to use 3 tandem axles. They're 2011 side load split bodies, which is basically 60-40. So what they're doing is they're doing dual collection, so cutting down on the amount of time that they're on the road driving, and that's a reduction in greenhouse gases in itself in that respect, with the intention to collect everything in a single pass. Currently, we don't have a location set up for organic waste, and organic waste is our next very large step that we want to move forward to dealing with this, and we'll be working closely with the regional district to try to determine a future site. The contractors in all of the proposals were willing to deal with organic waste once we can determine a location, and that's our biggest issue that we'll have. In these proposals, BFI as the recommended proponent, there's a couple changes to the garbage and recycling collection for the town that's being recommended. We're proposing to keep to the 1 bag limit for garbage collection weekly, unlimited bi-weekly recycling, blue bag recycling. Large item collection, we're suggesting and proposing that we go to still 1 time per year, but allow for 2 items to be collected, or up to 2 items collected. Yard and garden waste, this one here, to have unlimited yard and garden waste picked up bi-weekly from the months of March 1st to November 30th, and to change practices of how we do the collection of yard and garden waste. The plastic bags that are currently being utilized for yard and garden waste are basically debagged at a cost and then dumped off into our active face in the landfill. Definitely not the best practice when we're looking at trying to recycle for the community.
And what's being proposed, that we do away with the plastic bags for yard and garden waste, and that reusable containers and or craft style paper recyclable yard waste bags be utilized for the service. In addition to that, the glass collection, due to the volumes being very low on glass collection and the costs of the service being fairly high, it's proposed that we go to a depot system for glass collection. We currently have locations set up at the Osoyoos landfill, but in dialogue that I've had with the our bottle depot owners, they are willing to set up a glass bin at their facility, so that when our residents are going to recycle their recyclables for glass and tin, they're able to get rid of their non-recyclable glass at the same time. The cost of these services, with all of the improvements to the level of service, and taking into account changing our philosophy of how we do the collection of yard and garden waste to the reusable containers and or the craft style bags, we're able to keep the garbage collection and recycling cost for our residents at the $104 per household. That's an improvement to the community as far as level of service. Some of the numbers also that I've got here, just to quickly bring up that I was digging up for us. The previous year's annual fee for garbage collection was $65.40. The future proposed rate's $43.86, so there's a significant reduction to the garbage collection charge. The recycling charge actually went up. It went from $28.32 to $35.58. So the basically increase in volume in the recycling, thus the increased cost in that part. BFI has also taken over the responsibility and liability of processing and marketing recyclables. The town would no longer be on the hook for having to pay any of those processing fees. It's already built into the rate, so that's another bonus that we can look at. Yard waste collection. Our annual fee that we paid for the 9 collections for this last year was $13.50. This new proposed system is actually less at $13.24. Our large item collection rate is increasing from 86 cents to $1.08, so a slight increase. Can
we just back up, Mr. Zackel, while it's on my mind? Do that $13 one again.
Yes.
Because I thought if we went to glass, there wouldn't be any charge.
By not going to glass, we're reducing our costs on that. 88 cents per collection is currently what's charged for glass collection, and we have four collections per quarter,
okay,
or per year. Pardon me.
Okay, so that was 4 times 88, whatever that is.
Correct.
Okay, then probably about 3. Then what was the $13 one?
Okay, the $13 one, yard and garden waste. Our 9 collections for last year from March through November once a month was $13.24. To go to the biweekly collection from March 1st to November 30th, the rate is $13.50, 26-cent increase to increase this level of service. We further, by changing the practice...
And this is per household?
Per household. By changing to the reusable containers and the craft style bags, we're saving on the cost of the processing fee. And saving on airspace at the landfill as well.
I don't know if I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. Another just a point of interest as well, as far as bag tags, just so that you know, in 2010 we had sold 134 bag tags for the regional district. 2,429 we sold for the town of Osoyoos.
And that's at $1.50?
At $1.50 a tag. So in my recommendation is, our recommendation is to basically award a 5-year contract to BFI with the option of a 2-year extension.
commencing July 1st of 2011.
Great.
If I can bring Cameron forward to do his presentation that he gave to the regional.
Sure. That would be great. And we have a little bit of time on this to do this. I know there was just some councils looking for. Hopefully we get all
The biggest issue is the contractors needed approximately 6 months to be able to order their new equipment, to have it arrive by the July 1st deadline. That's why we're doing this so far in advance compared to doing this a month and a half before the.
Well, maybe Cameron's presentation will allay all the questions there at the committee of the whole meeting.
Okay,
thanks.
Fair enough.
Councillor Rhodes?
That was my question. No, yeah, well, I can wait till after Cameron's done.
Okay.
Yeah. There were financial questions. Yeah.
Hi there, Cameron Bond, Regional District, Okanagan-Similkameen. If you guys want to ask me the questions now, perhaps I can better answer them with Jim's help. The presentation was developed for the Regional District Okanagan-Similkameen Board for the rural directors. Some of the numbers in there are different than what you guys are seeing now. Jim's given you some of the numbers, so I don't want to confuse anyone. If there's specific questions on the award, I can address that. This is just for the potential service levels that you guys are considering. At the board level, we presented an award, and then we also presented the change of services, 2 different reports. So, however, whatever you guys want to ask me right now, I can go through that.
One concern would be the glass situation. You know, why we're moving away from that. I know there's no market for it in that, but I think council would like to hear that. And the yard and garden waste, I think the council would like to hear about that. And the organic recycling, council would hear about that. There's 3.
Okay. I'll briefly touch on all 3, and then I might reiterate some of it. In terms of glass, there is no current market for recycling of glass in the interior of BC. Now there's different streams of glass. If you go to a bottle depot, that bottle depot can return that glass quite easily. Very difficult for us to recycle that material, and I'll touch on that in there. In terms of the added increase of collection of organics, I've got some numbers in there as well. And in terms of food waste, and I think that's the main goal that we're looking at now in our solid waste management plan, we're developing a 20-year strategy in terms of large capital projects to do with solid waste. I don't touch on it in this presentation, but it is a goal of the plan as it stands now as a draft plan. That plan will be brought forward to you as council and also to anyone that sits on the board in terms of looking at it. We currently have set up in February a steering committee meeting that you have Councillor Rhodes attending. And we'll be discussing some of the key goals and objectives of that, and that'll be one of those key goals and objectives. So maybe I'll just continue on through the presentation then. Again, this is for our review of potential curbside services for the rural customers of the RDOS. Okay. Essentially, what we're looking at is we've hit the 50% diversion mark. That's what our stage 1 of our solid waste management plan has shown. We've met the key requirements of the province mandated to us in the 1990s. The next goal, though, is we need to sort of see where we want to go from here. As the plan has not been adopted by any committees, boards, or councils, we don't have anything to go on as such, but we've seen 70% diversion being adopted by Metro Vancouver and other municipalities and other regional districts. To achieve that 70% diversion of waste, we see there's small and large steps, and certainly the curbside garbage program is one of the key steps that we can do to help reduce waste entering the landfill. So our RDOS program is very similar to yours. There's a few differences. We collect 2 containers, not 1. We have every other week unlimited recycling, similar to yours. We only collect 6 yard waste collections per year. You guys are currently 9. We have one large item collection of 2 items. You guys only collect 1 item. And then we collect glass, depending on where it is, either 2 times per year or every other week. I believe you guys collect almost monthly, or is it 9 times per year? Or 4 times per year, okay. So there's quite differences between the programs, but the idea and goals are very similar. So what we did is we looked at your current program, and we focused in on Oliver because as the operators of the Oliver landfill, we had the most up-to-date stats. And we just see a lot of benefits in going towards a one garbage container option. We found at least 10% reduction in Oliver's waste, sometimes as high as 20%. It's hard to say from year to year what the exact cause of the reduction was, but it's a significant reduction. We see there was an increase in the materials recycled, the amount of it. There seem to be very few complaints, and this is dealing with Oliver and talking to Jim here in Osoyoos. You guys did pick up the Tag-A-Bag sticker sales slightly. And then there was what we found in a recent survey, which did cover off people in the town of Osoyoos, was that between 75 and 80% of residents place out a maximum of 1 bag per week anyways. So even though the Tag-A-Bags may be used, it's not for the majority of homes. So in that question we asked is, in a given year, do you ever place out more than 1 bag? And the majority of people only place at 1 bag or less. And then the Tag-A-Bag program, if you view it as a pay-as-you-throw initiative, is a way to discourage people from throwing stuff in the garbage, but making sure that those people that have that volume of waste, that they actually pay for that waste. And that's the goal of that program. So in the regional district, what we looked at was what kind of savings if we went from 2 cans to 1 can, and there's no collection price difference, and I believe that affects you guys as well. The contractor didn't see a price difference between 2 bags and 1 bags in terms of collection. You still have to get the truck to the curb to pick up, and the time taken to pick up that bag is pretty minimal. We see that if we did a 10% reduction in tipping fees for our rural areas around the RDOS, we'd save about $20,000 per year, which equals about $2 per year per household. It isn't a huge amount, but it is certainly an amount of waste that you're keeping out of the landfill. And then you see a slight increase in revenue from the Tag-A-Bag sales. So the benefits of that, of course, is the waste, the tonnages you're diverting, and increased recycling. Those are other benefits to your guys' continuation of the 1 bag program. So we looked seriously at the biweekly and yard and garden waste collection. And in the Okanagan, with similar kind of demographics to us, is the Central Okanagan Regional District. And they commenced every other week cart collection of yard waste in 2009. And they did a switch from six seasonal collections to the every other week collection. So they saw a rate increase of collection of about 2.5 times. They were collecting just under 100 kilograms per home per year for yard waste, and now they're collecting over 250 kilograms of yard waste per year. So it's a large collection. This was to our regional district and the city of Penticton and our rural people that use that facility at Campbell Mountain facility in Penticton. We see self-haul visits to the landfill as being a huge source of the lineups that we experience there. They found over a 50% reduction of self-haul yard waste visits. And even with our low tipping fees or no tipping fees, we certainly see a lot of people up there, and it does add to the traffic flow. To compare it, the RDCO, which uses a cart, did find that was a factor, but they found that the every other week collection was the main reason for the increased collection. And that's our view of it is that some residents seem to be using their second garbage bag for grass or garden clippings, and even some of the initial bag. People are just throwing it in there to get rid of it. It's not something they want to hang around with for a month for the next large collection, but they would maybe keep for every other week collection. So what we did hire a contractor, and they did a full organics review. This is leading into our sort of next 20 years on how can we best deal with organics in our area. So they looked at yard and garden waste, they looked at food waste, looked at wood chips, they looked at all these other kind of things that could be composted. And they looked at our curbside program, and they said, okay, currently you're diverting about 81% of yard waste. So about a big chunk of our curbside collection of garbage is yard waste. I've done waste audits at our landfill, and which would verify that yard waste is getting into those black bags, and that some of the yard waste is just ending up in our waste stream. They looked at it, and in terms of comparisons with other communities across North America, they said we could maybe save about 12% waste in terms of tonnage being diverted by switching to an every other week collection from a seasonal collection. That if we went to weekly, that would be slightly increased to 98%. We'll never get 100% of organics out of there, but we could divert a large percentage of it and remove that amount of weight from the tonnage of a landfill entering the landfill as waste. So we all recognize organics as a high source of methane in landfills. We also know that a lot of us have unattenuated landfills, which aren't lined. Attenuated landfills that aren't lined, and those are going to be leaching materials from that landfill. And the organics we recognize as the soupy kind of aspect, very high in liquids, and it's adding to that loss of leachate from the landfill into the environment. But methane is certainly one of the main goals, and the province has identified landfills as being a key goal. They rate currently about, in a 100-year time period, about 35 or 40 times methane compared to CO2. Well, CO2 lasts pretty much forever. It's a stable molecule, while methane breaks down in about 10 years. So what the international community is starting to compare methane to CO2 emissions is at the more the 20-year time period. And at that time period, you're rating it about 70 times more potent than CO2. So if you compost organics, you create CO2. You can't get around that. It's carbon in, carbon out. When you put it in a landfill and you smother it with water and you keep it away from oxygen, the bacteria that get in there are coal composters, and they create methane. And that's the methane that's coming out of your landfill. So by having an aerobic composting versus an anaerobic composting, you can stop that methane production. So we also recognize that self-haul to landfills is a key source of CO2 emissions. If more trucks are being taken up to the landfill, waiting in line, getting their materials in there, it's a small but significant source of CO2 emissions in the community. And again, we note the Campbell Mountain facility as one. But as the community grows in this area, you're going to probably see lineups at your landfill as well. So we see that as 23 collections. Some communities have said 19 collections. We're looking at 23 collections per year in terms of a 9 monthly biweekly versus a 6 per year. There's an added service. But here's the cost. And you guys actually, your 25 cents is a lot different than our areas. Our rural communities pay a lot more for our collections, and this kind of reflects in this slide. We pay between over $10 to over $5 more than a comparative of 10 collections per year. So for our 23 collections, there is a cost that we would have to serve. You guys, about 25 cents. So if you guys calculate a 12% increase in diversion, if you go straight to the third one, that's about $1.25 per home per year. And that's weighing the cost of bringing it in as garbage versus the cost of bringing it in as yard waste. We pay tipping fees on the yard waste too. It's 25 in our areas, and a lot of these numbers are actually going to be a bit higher for you because of your higher tipping fees. We currently charge $55 per metric ton, where you guys charge $65. And we also charge $25 per metric ton for yard waste. We also find that working with Osoyoos, we calculated about 60 cents per home per year on radio advertising and some print advertising to allow people to know about these events. And we find that if you combine this, and it's pretty much an easier sell for you guys, but we also found that by switching from clear plastic bags to reusable compostable containers, there's further savings that can be done. And I'll just discuss that as we get to the next slide. So reduce methane from landfills. We found that in just the RDOS service area, and you guys have a pretty large community here, but just in terms of area A, B, C, D, E, F, G, we found about 430 tons of organics per year diverted. The collection of grass and yard trimmings is found to be the biggest pickup. Reduced landfill times. The every other week collection, it works well with our split trucks. Right now, the trucks that they're going to be running at Osoyoos have a compartment for garbage every week, and they'll alternate between a compartment for recycling and yard waste. And so the two compartments will be utilized for the entire year, except for those months in the wintertime when yard waste is not being found to be that, you don't have a large volume of it. Let's go to the next slide. So craft bags and reusable containers. In the proposal that we haven't accepted, we have not awarded our proposal for our rural areas, but we are considering. BFI Canada has requested that the yard waste debagging cost be covered by the RDOS. And that's because they've seen the huge jump from about 100 kilograms up to 250 kilograms. It's very hard for them to calculate that cost of debagging. Currently, they're paying $44 per metric ton through a contract with a local group. That local group also works at your landfill for a similar price. This isn't paid for via the Osoyoos or the regional district. It's paid for currently by the contractor. So if we agree through our contract negotiations to accept this BFI Canada proposal, these costs have to be probably borne by either the local municipality or by the regional district. We found that by increasing collection, by going to biweekly or every other week collection, we could actually switch to a container. This is being done currently in the Lower Mainland, all over Southern Ontario, where people purchase easily available garbage cans, Canadian Tire or one of your local home hardware shops here, easily purchased. You actually place your yard waste in there, and we supply a sticker And that sticker goes on there, yard waste only. So the hauler knows, yes, this is for yard waste. They collect that every 2 weeks. You can also purchase craft bags, and in our research we found, this is from the City of Toronto, is about 60 cents for a craft bag versus 50 cents for clear plastic bag. So it is more expensive to use the craft paper bags. We did check in. They're being used now all over the Lower Mainland, including some of the North Shore, like West Van and North Van. The rain doesn't seem to be affecting these craft bags or the wet moisture inside that grass. So it seems to be effective, but slightly more expensive for the homeowner. But we feel that by using those reusable containers, that the majority of the time they're going to be able to use those reusable to get rid of their grass or clippings or other leaves. But they may still have to use bags for the fall when the leaves are coming down, or the early spring when they're collecting those leaves again. So, but the cost comparisons are fairly similar. So in terms of us, if you're looking at that $44 per metric ton, and again, we haven't negotiated that, but that's the current price that the contractor's paying. We're looking for 100 kilograms, which is roughly what we accept now, looking at $4.40. But if we get an increase by going to biweekly, it's going to go up to as high as $11 per home in terms of debagging costs if we get as much as 250 kilograms. So where it actually ends up will, of course, depend on how much people put out. So the benefits, of course, are the reduction of plastic waste. I think we all agree we don't really want to see the stuff in the landfill. And we're also discussing with BFI Canada, and this is very, very early stages, but currently in the city of Penticton, they allow people to rent carts. And then they have a semi-automated system where it's not like a system where an arm comes out and grabs it, which is a fully automated system, but the driver comes out and actually attaches it to the vehicle, and then there's an arm that comes up and drops it. If it is possible, we may be able to work with these guys to lease or rent bins in our communities, including perhaps the town of Oliver. But we're certainly looking at, in terms of our bareware strategies, getting some of our garbage in bareware containers, but also allowing people to rent for yard waste. So if they want to use the wheeled carts, which is very effective in going around your lawn to pick up leaves or other materials, then they can get huge bins for that collection. We don't know yet if that is coming, but it's certainly something that's promising. But we find that if you're going to switch from reusable containers, it's better to have an every other week collection. It doesn't make sense to use these reusable containers if you're going to be placing out 20 or 30 bags each collection. If you wait 2 months, a month for some of the collection dates, people do get a large amount of yard waste. But if it's collected every 2 weeks, if you have 2 garbage cans with a sticker on it, that might be enough. You might not have to use bags until the fall when, again, you might need to use them for your leaves. So it's a better return on investment for the homeowner to purchase those reusable containers, which is really where we want them to go. Reuse is better than the composting of those paper bags. And then lastly, I guess I talk a bit about glass there. Next slide. Container glass is no longer available locally. We're shipping materials to Lavington. We were certainly working with Osoyoos on that. The Lavington plant is no longer open. The refundable glass that you take to the local bottle depots is sorted by hand. Well, the container glass that we get is basically scrambled together, and it often contains contaminants such as food or plastic. Metals is easier to remove, but certainly plastics isn't. Non-refundable glass is used as mixed cover at landfills, and we found it to decrease the cost and length and can help lengthen the landfill's lifespan. We currently use it at the Okanagan Falls facility. We collect all the glass from Oliver, Osoyoos, Penticton, and all of our rural areas, and we bring that currently to Okanagan Falls. And that's helped us over the lifespan of the landfill, hopefully save hundreds, if not thousands, millions of dollars in terms of getting more fill for that landfill. Just to kind of give you an idea of container glass, if you place one porcelain glass, and this is from the Recycling Council of BC, if you place one porcelain glass in with a whole truckload of container glass, that glass can't be recycled. They're going to take it, they're going to try to mill it down back into sand or make it back into glass again. That contaminants from your porcelain glass then gets contaminated throughout that glass. That's enough to make sure you can't make glass with it again. So it's a very tricky business, glass recycling. The OnCorp depots do a wonderful job, and all the glass that they receive is fully recycled. It's actually taken down to a Lower Mainland and then taken to Seattle, where it's turned back into wine bottles. So there's certainly 2 distinct streams in our area. But we just don't, like when you get this glass scrambled together in olive oil containers with their little metal rings or plastic things inside, the paper isn't a contaminant, but it's the food waste that's left inside. This material is very difficult now to recycle, and we think the reuse at local facilities is the way to go with this material currently. In terms of cost, some of the other places that currently take it are Calgary will take it for fiberglass. Some other places will take it for sandblasting, but we have to ship it a long distance. So we found it's best to use it locally. So what we're looking at is a separate collection. So we're doing it currently as a separate collection. So a third truck comes by and picks up that glass 4 times a year here, 2 times a year in the rural communities. It's expensive to send that truck out for the minimal amount of glass we are receiving, and we're not getting much glass in right now. Some of the every other week collection of glass is actually being more successful, but again, it's pretty expensive, and we have had a lot of contamination with our blue bags, which drops the value of that recyclables. So what we're recommending is to set up glass recycling bins at local landfills, and then to discuss it with different groups. The bottle depot seems to be one of the best options. We currently have one at the T2 Market in Oliver, and that's paid for through the Oliver landfill, which then can accept that glass and use on site for some of their cover material. So the BFI Canada bid was not very pretty for glass. It was very expensive for glass because they recognized that they'd have to send a third vehicle out. So that's some of the dollar values that we're looking at in our regional district. It's going to be different for you guys here. But the benefits of going to basically a depot system is it's local, continual. They can go there pretty much during business hours to drop off their glass. There'll be less contamination or injuries when sorting recycling, because often the glass gets broken and stuck inside the paper, and it's difficult to remove it once it's in shards. The funding for the landfill or regional function, allowing for the businesses to use the service. Right now, businesses can use the landfill, but if they have access to more in-town recycling, that's always a benefit. We certainly don't recommend these depots go unmanned. We've had a lot of problems with unmanned depots, but if we can work with groups that have a fence or business hours that can sort of maintain it or it works for their business, then we think that might be a way to keep the site clean as well as usable for local people. And then the landfills, I don't know if Osoyoos is ever going to go that way, but we certainly know that at our facilities, OK Falls particularly, we want the glass, we're using it, and it's helping us save money. And so what we're doing now, our next steps is to get costs for this and bring it back to the councils and the board. And we're going to be doing an RFP for our area, so the 4 facilities we manage. We'll look at our landfill depots, and we'll include the pricing for collection of glass at different communities and allow people to sort of see whether that's the right thing. Whether they want to expand from the landfills, where we think there'll always be glass recycling, to another in-town depot, those costs will be brought back. And maybe not for this budget right away, but hopefully we can find some monies this year to sort of pay for it.
Great. That's it?
Hope so.
Cameron, thank you very much for that presentation. I think council sat here from knowing nothing about it to knowing a lot. No, that was really good. Fight through this and see what all those numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cameron, I really appreciate your knowledge and your passion about our garbage. Been a big asset for me in the 1 or 2 meetings that I've attended already. I got a couple of questions, and I think you answered both of them, but I just want to make sure. That $104 per household for the waste pickup, how do we compare to some of the other communities in that regard? And I know you commented on the 2 bag down to 1 thing not having much impact on our on the overall cost of picking that up. And I heard your words, but I'm not quite there. I'm not sure if I really are those words from the waste pickup people, where they questioned thoroughly, and I just have a bit of a problem being half the amount costing the same as twice the amount.
We'll answer your first question first. Compared to our rural areas, so the Area A residents pay $145 per year. Now, we haven't done our budget for this year, but we're looking at some price increases. That price probably will go up in Area A. Area C, we're looking at, I think, $140. I have to look at my numbers. So the rural areas are always going to be a bit more expensive than the more central communities. So in comparison to other areas, I'm not sure what the municipalities are charging right now because it's really not my purview. But looking at some of the central Okanagan costs, when they went to their, and this is one of the reasons why we didn't consider so much this iteration to look at containerized, their costs are upwards towards $200. And they have some other issues up there that they're dealing with. But 180, 100, like it's much higher than what you guys are paying now. Again, the cost of the containers has to be paid for. So it's hard to compare apples to apples for service levels. You might want to talk to the town of Oliver because they're very similar to what you guys are doing. For the contractors, that all of the contractors we spoke with would be based out of Penticton. So the driving time from Penticton to here is going to be slightly longer than, say, this municipality of Oliver. And we see that in our contract pricing. Area G example, which is Headley, and those communities are much more expensive to service than those communities that are much closer to the landfill. And that's part of the cost of doing business. In terms of the contractor costs, it's interesting, but it's true. The contractor did not change the pricing between 1 and 2 bags. But we found some benefit to staying with 1 bag because of the tipping fee reductions. And it would be slightly higher for you guys because that math I did was for $55 per ton. And if you can get a 10% reduction down here at $65, it's going to be more than $2. So, but again, yeah, the contractor, and Jim will back me up, said between 1 and 2, the cost is exactly the same.
Okay, Council, anything else? Councillor Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cameron, what do you see in terms of you were distinguishing, I think, between organics and household waste or household food waste? What do you see as the timeline for some progress in composting food waste?
Yeah, food waste. Well, we looked at an organic strategy and we looked at a number of different factors. So we looked at yard waste, and I have to commend the town of Osoyoos. You guys have pressed ahead and you guys are doing yard waste composting already. That's excellent, and that's something that the RDOS has not done yet. So that's one of the organic streams that we have a pretty good handle on. We have biosolids issues in South Okanagan, and we're looking at how to deal with it. Currently, biosolids are being generated by the City of Penticton, the District of Summerland, soon to come online, the Okanagan Falls facility and the Village of Karamias. And then, of course, you guys have a pretty good handle on sort of your systems that you're doing. So what we're looking at the next 5 years is to move our biosolids facility from the Campbell Mountain facility for the City of Penticton. We have about a 5-year window, and the reason for moving it is that although they can stay on site, it's hard to expand it on that facility. And the way the landfill footprint is moving, we're going to be actually overtaking that site currently where that City of Penticton operation is. So our goal is in the next 5 years to at least have some direction on where we're going to be doing the biosolids. In the study, because they recognize the biosolids and they recognize food waste, they said we should maybe think about doing a facility for food waste and biosolids together. So as we move towards that large capital projects, we'll be looking at that to see whether, if that's the case, the cheapest option, the best option, or whether we might be looking at satellite facilities for Oliver and Osoyoos. And the capital costing they were looking at seemed to come out more or less the same. And so whether we do a centralized facility for all the food waste in our communities in the regional district, or whether we go for one central facility for the north part of our area, and maybe work with an area somewhere in Oliver and Osoyoos area to look at more of a satellite composting operation, that's going to come down to negotiations, property, capital costs, and a lot of other things. But our timeline will probably come out of our solid waste management plan, and then the realities will probably slow those things down. But in reality, we have about a 5-year window to basically have somewhere to take our biosolids in the North Okanagan portion of the RDOS. And so we're going to be working fairly diligently at that at the RDOS and with the City of Penticton and our partners, just to develop those kind of facilities, to see where we can take that. And food waste will be part and parcel of it. And then it's hard to say when. Certainly home composting now is an option. And there are other technologies people can use to help work on that, be it worm composting, or there's some forms of digestion or pickling of garbage that might be effective at the home level. But when we get to a large-scale collection of what we call source-separated organics, you got to really worry about odor issues. And being a tourist destination like the Okanagan and the Similkameen are, we recognize that any new facility, if it's located away from a landfill or at a landfill, has a potential to increase odors for those local residents. So we're going to take it very carefully how we move forward and how we capitalize that, because keep odors down, you spend a lot more money. A good example is the North Okanagan Regional District worked with the City of Kelowna on developing their biosolids facility, and they've spent a lot of time and money and made a lot of good mistakes that we can sort of hopefully avoid. But it did take them a number of years to get that facility sited and in operation. So a 5-year window would be very, very optimistic, but it's sort of the goal that we're looking at now, to at least develop biosolids and perhaps food waste.
Great. Thanks, Cameron. And I think we'll maybe try to shave that off. They're looking at council's wishes. Well, there's a desire from the administrative team to move this forward today, that we have to, but I think that was the intent of. Gee, can I break my own rule? North Okanagan landfill at Regional District North Okanagan, styrofoam compression process, taking it down from a block, removing 99% of the bulk through a compression program. Do you have on that?
Well, I'd probably challenge the 99% figure, but they do compress it a lot. The facility, they operate their own municipal recycling facility in partnership with a contractor at the landfill in Vernon. And they have started the compression system up there. It's a hot compression system. There's been some concerns about odors. I know our staff went to visit it. Right now, we're in a strange situation where the province has said that in the next 5 years, they think packaging, and that includes styrofoam, paper, basically all the recyclables that we currently recycle now, may become like bottles and actually be a return program, or be collected via where it's paid for by the generators of that material. So in terms of capitalization of that, they already had the staff, the property, and the building to operate that facility. If we go forward, we're a bit more cautious because we don't have that already at play. We would like to do it, of course. We want to do waste reduction, but we also want to make sure that that it's paid for and capitalized, because if we get into a contract arrangement with a group to do that styrofoam, they'd be crazy not to ask for at least some 5-year term. And if in 5 years styrofoam is being collected via another one, we might have invested in a technology too early. So that's some of the debate we're having. Through the solid waste management plan, we'll be looking at that. Certainly, they applied gas tax funding to that in the North Okanagan, but they didn't have to worry about labor, building, land, which we would have to then find all 3 of those, and then the gas tax funding to move that forward, any kind of capacity.
Well, we'll get some reports back from Rhodes on what's happening there. Councillor Rhodes.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept option 1 as per the recommendation. If you wish, I can read it out.
Yes, please. I think a little off track here.
A motion would be that BFI Canada Inc. be awarded a 5-year contract with a potential of 2-year extension commencing July 1 of 2011 for the collection of garbage, compostable materials, and large items, and collection, processing, and marketing of recyclable materials. And the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the service agreement for curbside garbage and recycling collection. And was that a mouthful?
Thanks, Councillor Rhodes. Seconder on that, please. Councillor Ryan. We've come so far today. Thanks a lot, Cameron. Thanks a lot, Mr. Romanko, for jumping on this. Thanks a lot, Jim. This was not moving forward at 11 o'clock this morning, I can tell you that. So with that information and education that you provided to this council, we've been able to get over a big hurdle. So thanks for coming down. Thanks for triggering that. Thanks.
Vote.
So are you, we have to vote, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Still there.
That is carried. Mr. Zackel.
The next order of business that you've got is the Osoyoos Secondary School bursary. We received a letter from the Osoyoos Secondary School asking if the town of Osoyoos wishes to offer a scholarship, award, or a bursary again for the graduating class coming up this year. The deadline for this is January 28th of 2011. Last year we provided one bursary in the amount of $1,500 to one student. Some of the implications for a community: this provides a little bit of a financial assistance to a graduating student of the Osoyoos Secondary School to help out with some of their post-secondary costs. From an organizational standpoint, the mayor or the mayor's designate would be the one presenting this award or awards at the award ceremony. And from a budget implication, this comes out of the grant and aid pool of funds, and if the amount stayed the same, there would be no change to the budget. However, if we were to increase the amount, of course, that would reduce our pooling amount. The number of options that we got is to continue with past practice of offering one bursary, or to consider reducing the amount to a $500 threshold and offering 3 bursaries, spreading out the funds to 3 graduating instead. So my recommendation to council is to award 3 bursaries in the amount of $500.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Rhodes?
I'd like to make a motion that we award 3 bursaries. I'll never get that word out, so I won't even try. The graduates of Osoyoos Secondary in the amount of $500 each.
Seconder, Councillor Chadsey. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on that, Councillor Ryan?
I think in terms of bursaries, if one is good, more or better. But you know, when you go to $500, you're kind of looking at what amounts were quite a while ago, and I'm wondering. I would be happier, I think, if we were going to have more than one, if we split it in half and had $750. And I wonder if was there any rationale for not choosing a midpoint of just breaking it into 2?
Just dealing with past practice where I watched my son go through the graduating process and sitting through the award ceremonies. There's a lot of graduates out there that can use any form of assistance possible, and $500 may not be a lot of money, but it does go a long way when assisting towards post-secondary. It's just trying to spread the rationale was to try to spread it out to more deserving students rather than just one student. We'd love to be able to offer or recommend even more money. However, there is only a limited amount of money to be able to give out from our taxpayers' dollars.
Well, maybe we could look at it. This is the first year we've gone to 3. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Well, let's maybe get some feedback on it and see what it looks like. Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having been one, too, that's thought through these a few times, and I've made a lot of motions to increase this amount. And I think that given all the circumstances, the youth of our community are very important people to our community, and certainly secondary education or post-secondary education is certainly valuable to all graduates that to make use of, and the ones that aren't as fortunate to have the financial wherewithal to do some of that. As Mr. Zackel said, every little bit helps. So if we split the 3, I'd like to propose an amendment that we increase the amount by $300 from $1,500 to $1,800, so that each one would be increased to $600. And that way, then there'd be a little bit more. And you know, if we increase a little bit each year, it all helps. So I would move an amendment to $1,800 split 3 ways.
If you increase that to $2,250, 3 times $750, I'll second it.
Okay, I'll move it.
Second it here. Okay. I do get the second.
Yeah, you can second.
I'll move it.
Yes, 3 times $750. Any discussion on that? Councillor Ryan?
I would support that amendment and the motion as amended eventually.
Okay, so this will be as an amended motion. We don't have to vote on the amendment first. Yes, yep. And we'll be voting on the amended motion. 3 times 750. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Some folks get lucky. Jackal.
It's a good cause. The next item that we've got is the Northwest Sector Sanitary Sewer Project. This is a tendering of Phase 2. The Northwest Sector Sanitary Sewer Project is to bring sewer services to the specified area north of the town of Osoyoos and to the north end of Osoyoos Lake. Phase 2 of the project was tendered and closed on the 22nd of December. This phase goes from the north end of 89th Street to Roberts Point. 5 tenders were received, with Sunline Utilities being the lowest bidder at $453,118.40, and it includes a contingency allowance and HST. True Consulting has reviewed the tender packages and confirmed that Sunline Utilities was the lowest bidder, and the tender was under budget, and the recommended contractor is Sunline Utilities. In this tender package, the approval of the 660-meter segment of sanitary sewer force main, which is located north on the proposed or north of the proposed reflection point development in Phase 2, has not received regulatory agency's approval at this point, and construction on that portion of it may be delayed up to the fall of this year. In the tender package, True Consulting made it so that that area was identified as a provisional, basically a deletable item, that if we didn't get the regulatory approvals, we could defer that portion of the tender and not award that portion until we get the approvals necessary to move that forward. The implications to our community by this project moving forward is improved lake quality, improved water quality. From an organizational standpoint, staff time is required to ensure that this project continues to move forward, and it is included in our business plan. And from the budget perspective, this phase of the project is projected to come in under budget.
Thank you, Mr. Zach.
Okay. And basically the recommendation is to award the Northwest Sector Sanitary Sewer Project Phase 2 to contract the Sunline Utilities in the amount of $453,118. That does not include the 660-meter segment at this time.
Okay, so that doesn't, just what you said, it doesn't include the 660 meters, so if we get our regulatory approvals in riparian stuff, that we would go re-tender that.
No, we'd be able to proceed with this project.
With this tender,
yeah,
okay.
But we have to have the regulatory approvals first.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Rhodes.
I'd like to move that we accept option 1 to award the Northwest Sanitary Sewer Project Phase 2 contract to Sunland Utilities in the amount of $453,118.40, not including the 660-meter segment.
Seconder on that? Councillor Cronmiller. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that? Councillor Rhodes, please.
Sunland is the contractor from Phase 1. It's just a comment. It's staggering the difference in the quoted prices between this company and the second one in line.
The biggest issue is this organization used to send their staff fairly far north in the province to do work, and what they found is by getting the first job here, they really want to keep their staff working in this area, and especially with the amount of construction happening, there's a lot of organizations now looking for work, so you're seeing the prices come down even more. I can't answer why there's such a discrepancy in costs, other than I see a lot of profit that some organizations may have made if they would have been awarded the contract. This contractor will still be supervised. Materials are all tested. there is no shortcuts with respect to that at all. And there's no reservations of holding back to award this contract to this project.
Yep. Anything further? All in favor? Aye. That is opposed. Seeing none, that is carried. Thanks, Mr. Zackel. Moving on to business 7, Okanagan Basin Water Board grant application. Mr. Phil Armstrong, our planning technician.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is to advise Council that staff wishes to submit a grant application to the Okanagan Basin Water Board for a partnership approach to conducting foreshore inventory and mapping and aquatic habitat index of Osoyoos Lake. At Council's regular meeting on April 19, 2010, they abandoned water zoning bylaw number 108580 in its present form and directed staff to draft a new bylaw using a stakeholder process. Since that time, staff has conducted a pictorial survey of Osoyoos Lake, had discussions with local governments and other agencies, and held 3 successful meetings of the Lake Recreational and Commercial Use Task Force. As part of the ongoing research and data collection process for drafting a new water zoning bylaw, staff is recommending Osoyoos follow the current 3-step lake management process being standardized across BC by Ecoscape Consulting. The 3-step process has been standardized on many lakes, including the Okanagan, Skaha, Shuswap, etc. In the Okanagan areas, these projects have been funded primarily by the Okanagan Basin Water Board. The following provides an overview of the 3-step process. Step 1, foreshore inventory and mapping are protocols used to collect baseline information regarding the current condition of watercourses, shoreline, and associated riparian habitats. These inventories provide information on shoreline character, shorebank type and condition, substrates, land use, and habitat modification, as well as any other factors that we want to collect information on while we're conducting the inventory. Then they also, to create the mapping, they also use existing fisheries inventories, recent ortho photos, and other information. Step 2 is an aquatic habitat index. Basically, it's a 1 to 5 index of the most sensitive fish habitat areas. And then step 3 consists of the consultant writing shoreline management guidelines and requires the liaison and public outreach components at all levels of government. DFO and MOE would approve the guidelines, and they would ultimately lead to a more streamlined approval process. The attached grant application to the OBWB will only cover step 1 and 2. This project will consist of a partnership between 3 jurisdictions, the town of Osoyoos, RDOS, and the Okanagan Nation Alliance, all working with Ecoscape Consultants, who Ecoscape Consultants have been essential in drafting these cutting-edge protocols for lake management. Other partners involved in data collection and review include the Ministry of Environment, Department of Fisheries, and the South Okanagan Similkameen Conservation Program. All these partners will provide letters of support to be submitted with the grant application. We've already received 1 letter, and we're hoping that we'll get letters from all these other agencies. These partnerships will ultimately result in a more streamlined process to lake management. In September 2011, when Step 1 and Step 2 are completed, the final components of the water zoning bylaw can be drafted using this cutting-edge science. The Columbia Shuswap Regional District is using foreshore inventory mapping and the Aquatic Habitat Index in developing their water zoning. For example, in areas with a low habitat index rating, there can be a greater density of boats moored than in areas with a high aquatic habitat index. Also, docks and boats are prohibited in high aquatic habitat index rating areas, and only buoys are allowed. So benefits to the community include the following: a clear understanding of the rationale for lake management and water zoning, and the development of related impacts to the shoreline that have already occurred. A clear understanding of the potential for approvals and the required steps for a private or community moorage tenure application. It will also provide an estimate of approximate riparian area, and this is great when someone wants to construct on the lake. They'll get a general idea of their setback prior to hiring a qualified environmental professional. And finally, for the organization, staff time is estimated at 24 hours of boat time and additional time for meeting, coordination, and report writing. The deliverables for the town from the project include strong intergovernmental partnerships, maps and data of the aquatic habitat index values for different areas of Osoyoos Lake, an extensive GIS database of pictures and video. For the video component, a gentleman from DFO comes with his great technology, and they GPS all the pictures and the video. So it's really great technology. A future water zoning bylaw based on the most up-to-date science and a solid basis for an eventual amalgamated regional water zoning bylaw. And finally, some leading-edge research to display at the Osoyoos Lake Water Science Forum number 2.
Thank you.
And so finally, the options are to support the application, and that letters of support for the grant application be requested from the following jurisdictions: RDOS, Osoyoos Indian Band, Okanagan Nation Alliance, Ministry of Environment, Department of Fisheries, and the South Okanagan Similkameen Conservation Program.
Okay, council, please. Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that we support the grant application to the Okanagan Basin Water Board for the Ecoscapes Environmental Consultants proposal for foreshore inventory and mapping and aquatic habitat index preparation for Osoyoos Lake.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Rhodes, discussion. All, Councillor Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My computer's acting up. I just ran out of memory, it says. But anyway, one of the things that I wanted to ask was, I think it's, first of all, it sounds like it's really exciting leading edge science. And I think that it's wonderful that Development Services has been very successfully negotiating grant application, bringing in additional funds to do some of these things. But on the funding, I wasn't quite sure from the final summary page as to what the total budget was and what was the amount that you were asking from the Okanagan Basin Water Board.
That's a good question. I left it out of the report, but it's on the attached application is for $28,977. And then there's in-kind contributions as well that are about another 9,000 or so. So it's around 38,000 is the total valuation that we've put to the project.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
No problem.
Anything further? All in favor of the application? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Chadsey? Oh. Councillor Chadsey? Aye. There's a second part to that recommendation, I believe.
Yeah.
Letters of support. Where are we with the letters of support? Sounds like they've already gone out.
Yeah,
or
I've been verbally in discussing with MOE and DFO and other agencies. They've already sent in. MOE's already sent in theirs, but formal requests haven't gone out to. Like we've spoken to O&A and they're supportive, but a formal request hasn't gone out to the Osoyoos Indian Band.
Maybe we should. Maybe we have that resolution. I think it's important. There's a lot of folks after OBW money, and 38,000 looks pretty good in the town of Osoyoos. So if we could get that second resolution. Councillor Cronmiller, seconder. Councillor Rhodes. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That is opposed. Sorry, I see all the hands. I forget the opposed. That is passed. The next item of business is a development variance. Mr. Armstrong.
Okay, so Town Council hasn't seen a development variance permit application for a while, so I just want to Council to note that Council must provide an opportunity for persons to be heard and to present written submissions on this matter at this meeting. The deadline for written submissions was 12 p.m. Friday, January 14th, 2011. See attached notice, which was mailed to the property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. So in the room today we have the owner of Reflections Guest House, Mr. John LaFrance, and the applicant, Richard Cavell. Also, we've received a letter from Charles Lowen, which is following the report. So the application is to vary the exterior side lot line setback from 3 meters to 1.2 meters for all the front porch to be enclosed. Reflections Guest House is located at 6813 Meadowlark Drive and consists of 4 separate suites. According to the town files, 2 suites are rented out as bed and breakfast, and 1 suite is rented out on a monthly basis, and the final suite is occupied by the owners. The applicant has applied to vary Section 8.2.2.1 of Zoning Bylaw 108598 to reduce the exterior side lot line setback from 3 meters to 1.2 meters. That's 3.9 feet. For the purpose of enclosing a porch to enlarge the interior front entrance and registration area. There's an attached survey which demonstrates the variance. Some of the adjacent uses, to the north is an R1 single-family dwelling. To the south is an agriculturally zoned parcel. And to the east is the Kettle Pond. And to the west is 1 residential unit directly to the west and 2 residential units southwest, as well as a Quonset building and RV storage lot. The guest property is somewhat unique because it has been granted a vehicular access easement over the neighbor's property to the west. The easement looks as though it forms part of Meadowlark Drive. So this process started in February 11, 2010, when the town became aware that construction was occurring on the subject property without a building permit. So staff got a building permit application submitted and realized that they couldn't approve it because it was construction within the setback, and only council can approve a variance. Further, because of safety concerns, staff advised the applicant that they wouldn't be supporting the variance application. So on September 2nd, staff received a development variance application and referrals were sent out. A mutually convenient council meeting date was scheduled and notices were mailed out. The correspondence to the applicant explains staff's rationale. The original building permit issued in 1992 clearly shows a required 3-meter setback from the west property line, which is and was the required setback for an exterior side lot line. Zoning Bylaw 743/1988 defined an exterior lot line as a parcel line other than a rear or front parcel line which is common to a highway. The highway was not defined in Zoning Bylaw 743, but the approved 92 site plan clearly shows the notes of the building inspector requiring this 3-meter setback. The building inspector did allow the architectural projection of a porch into the side yard, and it should be noted that a porch, whether enclosed or not, is no longer an allowed architectural projection into a side yard according to our current zoning bylaw. If the porch is enclosed, there are considerable safety concerns in the short term and in the long term. In the short term and the long term, the concerns are for people, mostly tourists, exiting Reflections Guest House, egressing from the building 4 feet from a vehicular access easement shared by the 4 guest house units and the neighboring property, which comprises of 3 residential units and the Quonset and storage, the Quonset storage building and an RV storage lot. It is important to understand that traffic to the 3 residential units and all the vehicles and large RVs accessing the storage lot in Quonset directly past the guest house's front porch. In the long term, another concern is that Meadowlark Drive may be extended and pass very close, 3.9 feet or less, to the subject property's front entrance. So community impacts, again, is the safety concerns. And the organizational impacts is that the town should keep its options open for future road construction. When drafting the Southeast Meadowlark plan, various options for road design were examined. And True Consulting advised that a 16-meter road right-of-way, which is the urban local standard of the subdivision bylaw, would be impractical. In order to construct a road extension to connect the 2 cul-de-sacs meeting current town standards, the building to the west, 6814 Meadowlark Drive, would have to be demolished. That said, narrower standards will form part of the town's new subdivision bylaw. And a narrower, traffic-calmed road without a sidewalk could be constructed in this area in the future without demolishing the neighboring building. the town should keep its options open to innovative standards. Narrower right-of-ways and pavement are becoming the trend because it costs less to construct and maintain and contributes to a reduced heat gain from pavement. At a very minimum, it's in the town's interest to have a fire lane between the two cul-de-sacs or a pedestrian access. So budget implications are, by permitting this variance, future land acquisition for road improvements may be more costly. And yeah, so the options are to approve the variance or do not approve the variance. And I just want to provide a bit of additional information. There's a bit of debate here between the applicant and staff regarding the definition of an exterior side lot line. Regardless of whether it's an exterior lot line or an interior lot line, this is because the road is a vehicular access easement, not a proper highway. That's why staff is, or a proper roadway. That's why there's a bit of debate over the issue. But regardless, a variance application was required because they're going to 1.2 meters rather than the 1.5 meters of an interior lot line. But when the previous building inspector approved the building plans, he clearly saw the vehicular access easement as a road and gave the property a 3-meter setback.
Thanks, Mr. Armstrong. Just somewhere in all that material, I saw a comment from Mark Pendergraft, who is a surveyor, planner, but he seemed to sort of be siding with the applicant, side lot, exterior, interior. What's your comment?
Yeah, so that's what I was just referring to. Basically, there's a bit of a debate because the previous building inspector considered it an exterior side lot line, looking at the vehicular access easement and the potential for a future road, and stated there was a 3-meter setback, which is the exterior lot line requirement for a corner property. But regardless of whether it's an exterior or an interior, the applicant needs a variance because it's going from the exterior lot line setback is 3 meters, the interior lot line setback is 1.5 meters, and the applicant is wishing to enclose the porch at 1.2 meters.
So, first off, it's hard because I don't like doing variances unless I've seen it. Pretty hard to hear, and that's really what a variance is. Variance is varying what's being allowed. So, okay, 3 meters, 1.5 meters, 1.2 meters. So when I'm hearing those kind of numbers, let's say that we were 1.5, 1.2. That's not very much we're talking about. There's nothing else that can be done. I know it's tight up there. I have been in that building years ago, but I haven't paid any attention recently. I don't know. I'll let council. Yes, Mr.
If you could just go down to the next page, I'll show council a picture. This shows the existing porch, and So basically, that is the porch that they're wishing to enclose, and from the post, it's 3.9 feet to the road right of way.
That's the side of the road.
Right, to the side of the road. So currently, a porch like that wouldn't even be allowed in a side yard setback according to our current zoning bylaw. But it was a permitted architectural projection in the past. So currently, that porch couldn't even be constructed. Let alone enclosing it.
And this porch is coming out 4.5 feet. What I'm looking at here, it's like it's 4.5 feet by 8 feet. I'm on page 230.
Could I just ask a question, Mr. Mayor? Bill, if we don't allow it in our existing bylaw, would that porch be considered existing non-conforming?
Exactly.
And no improvements can be made to an existing non-conforming structure?
Without a variance.
Without a variance, okay.
Well, I'd Sorry, I'm old school. I'd like to have the opportunity to see it. And then, Councilor Rhodes?
Just curious, does the owner have an opportunity to speak here?
Yes.
I think we should maybe we should do that before.
Definitely. Also, there's a letter. I don't know if the mayor wishes to read the letter from Charles Lowen, or if you'd like myself to.
Maybe you could read it into the record.
Sure. And then we'll jump to the applicant's presentation. Okay, attention to the Town of Osoyoos Council, meeting set for January 17th, 2011. As per our telephone conversation, it has come to my attention that an application of setback variance has been received by the Town of Osoyoos. I have the following concerns regarding the changing of the setback. 1, Meadowlark Drive is already narrow, and access to the property in regards to future development in the area. This involves properties that may be developed in the near future. Our property is Lot 1, Plan 36142. If easements are required along Meadowlark for future development, this variance could restrict ability to develop service lines, etc. Access by firefighting equipment is already restricted by a narrow road, Meadowlark. Since more development is on the drawing board for this area, I would suggest caution in allowing setback restrictions that could affect the quality of our future development as it pertains to this area. Since this is a narrow road to begin with, access to a closed-in porch with only a 1.2 meter setback could be a danger. Regards, Charles Lowen. And with that, I'll invite Richard Cavell to speak to council.
Yep. Yep.
Mayor, members of council, I told my client when I told him that councilors are about as happy to see a lawyer in front of them as somebody who gets the plague, that I may do more harm to his application than good. And that was sort of reinforced in my mind when I saw the length of your agenda and how long your day would be. So if I were in your shoes, the last thing I'd want to see in front of me right now is a lawyer waxing poetic over the merits of his own client's case. So I'm going to make my comments short, direct, and to the point. And this is no offense to Mr. Armstrong, who I've been dealing with over the months, who has always treated me professionally and with the utmost of respect and totally appropriate, even though he and his department and my client have taken differing viewpoints as to the merits of this matter. I have 4 main points. The first one is we're dealing with a variance slightly less than a foot. And I'll get to that later, because we're dealing with a variance from the setback requirements for an interior lot line. And the reason why we're dealing with the setback requirements for an interior lot line is because an exterior lot line is defined as a lot line adjacent to a highway. The definition of highway in the building code and the definition of highway in the Highways Act all exempt easement. We're dealing with an application for a variance from a setback requirement on a line which is right beside an easement. Therefore, the definition of exterior lot line cannot, by your own definitions, apply to it. The appropriate setback for an interior lot line is 1.5 meters. We're applying to vary it down to 1.2 meters, which is a difference of decimal 3 meters or approximately 11.5 inches. So point number one is we're seeking to enclose a porch here. We're not seeking to build a hotel. We're seeking to enclose a porch. And the reason why we're seeking to enclose a porch, if you go out and you take a look at the premises, as I urge you all to do, is because if you come to the front door of the guest house and open the front door, in front of you is the hallway, and to the right-hand side is the table that they take registrations from, and then immediately beside that there's a stairwell. And when people come to register, when they come to the guest house, sometimes they come in groups because some of the suites have a capacity of 2 bedrooms plus rollouts. People crowd up onto the landing on the stairwell. That creates a liability concern from my client's point of view. There's only enough room for perhaps 2 people at the top of that stairwell. And sometimes, and quite often, they get more than 2 people at the registration desk. So my client got the bright idea that if we enclosed the porch, we would be able to put the registration desk out on the porch and have people congregate in an area which is substantially larger than the landing at the top of the stairwell going down to the basement. They started construction and then they were stopped and told that they had to get a building permit, and then the building permit application was rejected on the basis that it required a variance from an exterior lot line. The second point is the one I've just made, that we're applying with respect to an interior side lot line. The third objection is to the staff report. If one takes a critical look at the staff report, it is, with all due respect to Mr. Armstrong, speculative, highly unlikely, and hypothetical. And I'll go through the staff report quite quickly. And the fourth point I'd like to make is that the building department said that its original objection of the building permit application was based primarily upon safety concerns. My client is willing, if you want to apply conditions on the variance, to do a number of things to eliminate those safety concerns. They're willing to put windows in the enclosure so that anybody in the enclosure can see traffic outside on the laneway. They're willing to block off access to the road and to create a path adjacent to their property and on their property to a parking lot, so that anybody coming to visit at the guest house parks in a designated parking stall off the road, walks along a designated path off the road, is separated from the road by a fence, and comes into the enclosed porch for the purposes of registration, thereby eliminating any pedestrian traffic on the laneway itself, and thereby eliminating the staff's major concern, which was one of safety. Now, I'll run you through the binder that I've given you quite quickly. Tab 1 is just a summary of the history of the application. I don't need to touch that. Tab 2 is a color photograph of the existing porch. The proposal is to enclose that portion of the porch from the post towards the front door. My client is willing to put windows in the walls. If you look pointing north, you'll see the edge of the roadway. My client is willing to put a fence along the edge of that roadway, put a path where there used to be grass, to a parking lot where there used to be that little vineyard, thereby eliminating any pedestrian egress onto the roadway. And the reason they want to do this and are willing to go to these steps is because they want to reduce, if not eliminate, the danger to their guests when they're registering immediately adjacent to a stairwell, a fall down which could lead to, from a lawyer's point of view, catastrophic injuries and catastrophic liability. The next tab is a very rough and ready sketch plan of the porch as it would look after enclosure. The next plan is a copy of the original, or the next tab is a copy of the original senior building inspector's rejection letter. The paragraph he states in paragraph 2 is, it is our understanding that the west property boundary was considered as an exterior side yard for the purposes of determining the required setback. Well, that may or may not be. I haven't had a chance to speak to the original building inspector who approved the porch. But if he considered it an exterior side lot line at that time, with all due respect to him, he was wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. And then they go on, the reason for this, in para 2, is the close proximity of the road access easement immediately to the west of your property. Staff has discussed this issue at length. This is in para 3, and it has been determined that you may apply for a development variance. Now, my client is willing to take steps if you impose conditions to eliminate the access to the laneway, as I said. Now, the next tab over, tab 5, is the definitions that you're dealing with. Definition of highway at the top includes a street, road, lane, bridge, viaduct, and any other way open to public use, but does not include a private right-of-way or easement on private property, and that's specifically what we're dealing with. So it's not a highway, it's a lane. And if you go out and take a look at it yourselves, you'll see that it's a lane. It is not a continuation of Meadowlark Drive. It is separated from Meadowlark Drive by a dog leg along 74th Avenue, maybe about 30 or 40 feet. The definitions of lot line front and lot line rear and lot line exterior are all at the bottom of that page. Lot line exterior means a lot line other than a front or rear lot line which is adjacent to a highway. I won't repeat myself except this once. Because it's not adjacent to a highway, it can't be an exterior lot line. Therefore, it must be, if you turn to the next page over, in section 2, a lot line side interior. It means a lot line other than a front or rear lot line which is not adjacent to a highway. So the definitions all fit within each. And if you jump immediately to tab number 7, which is a copy of the letter from Mr. Pendergraft, who's a well-respected land surveyor. He makes the points that I've made, but in about 10% of the words. But attached to that are the definitions and his sketch plan. About 3 pages over. If you take a look at his sketch plan, you can see quite clearly the easement on Lot A, the location of the residence with respect to the interior side lot line, and then at the north, the division between my client's Lot 3 and Lot 2 in the little dogleg. And then at tab 8 is another Pendergraft sketch plan to indicate the nature of the enclosure of the porch, which we seek your permission to do by way of variance. Now, the third point I made after going through that brief of documents there is, although the report from staff reads nicely, it doesn't stand up to analysis. I'm going to turn to page 2, if you could, of the staff report. Under the summary of adjacent uses, in the last sentence in the next paragraph, it says, the easement looks as though it forms part of Meadowlark Drive. Well, actually, it doesn't. I had an opportunity to look at the Town of Osoyoos Southeast Meadowlark Area Plan, and this is the suggested road network plan found at figure number 6. I didn't have many copies. the city. So interesting. Deals. Right. Small points, or bigger points. The city also doesn't treat Meadowlark Lane as a city road. There's no garbage pickup. In order to get garbage pickup, you got to take it all the way to 74th Avenue. There's no snow removal. There's also no maintenance or repair made on the lane by any kind of city resources. Turn over the page to page 3. In the first bullet at the top, it says, if the porch is enclosed, there are considerable safety concerns in the short term or in the long term. And they all relate to the concerns for people egressing from the guest house. And as I've already indicated to you, my client is willing to bend over backwards to eliminate those concerns, unless somebody wants to be stupid enough to climb over a fence and to jump on the laneway. Under implications, under B, organizational, the first arrow says, the town should keep its options open for future road construction. That one gives me sort of pause in my cerebral cortex. I've not been made aware of any plans, any budgetary approval, any RFPs for an extension of Meadowlark Drive. Right now, the only future prospect is in the Southeast Meadowlark Area Plan, and as figure number 6 indicates, there doesn't seem to be any projected future plan to push, to eliminate the dogleg and to push Meadowlark Drive all the way through down to the cul-de-sacs. Even assuming, given the current economic condition and the stagnant real estate market and the demands on the city's budget, that the city would determine in its wisdom to do something like that. It's just not a realistic, foreseeable danger. Maybe in the next 10 years, 20 years. I mean, the current projections for this market turning around are 5 years and upwards.
Excuse me, Mr. Cavell. I thought we were going to fast track this.
Okay, I'll push on.
But I don't mean to. Don't leave one pertinent point on the table.
No.
But I don't think we have to get into the future economy and going down those roads.
Okay. I also don't see, finally, how it could impact acquisition for road improvement costs in the future. What we're talking about here is enclosing a porch. We're not talking about anything that would lead to foreseeable or even dangerous future land acquisition costs. And so, as the mayor indicated earlier, if he feels uncomfortable about making a decision on this without taking a look at the property, I don't know if that's shared by the other councillors here, but I would urge you all to take a trip out there and take a look at it, so that you have a real eyeball concern or appreciation of the danger inside the front door of the house, as well as the steps that Mr. and Mrs. LaFrance are prepared to go to in order to not have any impact upon the options available to the city in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I did have a question on it. Why, if we're talking 11.5 inches, why didn't you give up the 11.5 inches? But I see that all you're really doing is enclosing the pillars.
Right.
Back to the house and a little bit of length on it.
Yeah.
What about barricades there on beside it? So it's not in the way of the...
Well, that's why I say we're willing to put a fence there. In other words, the porch would be fully enclosed. So the only way you could be able to get to the road after the fence is there is if you exited along the side and then jumped over the fence.
Okay, Councillor Rhodes, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move this forward, and I'm almost prepared to make a motion. However, I'm quite intrigued by the offer of additional precautions and the fence and that kind of thing. And regrettably, I don't see those itemized anywhere here, so it would be a little hard to prepare a motion with that. And I'm looking for an opportunity to perhaps defer this if it doesn't cause any great hardship to the homeowner.
And Mr. LaFrance is here on a full-time basis. He doesn't need me around if you want to go out and take a look at the property. The parking lot is already in existence, so the only thing that would have to be an amendment to a variance application would be to put windows in. We offered to do that months ago.
Well, I would like to see that from you or the homeowner to us, I guess, would be and then maybe that motion could move forward a little bit better. It would give us all an opportunity to go out and have a look at it.
I've got no problems doing that.
I've already viewed it myself, and I'm comfortable, but I think we need to, I'd like to gather that other information up to see what would be offered as an addition to this if the variance was granted.
I understand. Can I have some indication on timeline on that?
Next meeting. 2 weeks. Well,
first Monday of February.
February 7th. Yeah.
Mr. Cunningham.
I received, I think, some new information today. It may have been in a package somewhere, but I can't recollect seeing it in terms of the offer of your client. And certainly from a staff point of view, I'd like the opportunity to review that information.
Yes, that's quite correct. The only thing that was offered formally in the past was windows. Okay.
Right. Yeah, there was no question. Yeah, there was no question of a sidewalk and a fence. So I'd like to review that information and take that back to council. Let's say there's new information is being placed on the table here.
Looks like a motion to postpone would be appropriate. Codes. Councillor Ryan, no discussion on a motion to postpone to February the 7th. Mr. Romanko, was that the date?
Yes, Council.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. That is postponed. Everybody gets another kick at it.
Council. Thank you.
Would you like to be contacted when we do come out, or do you want to?
Sure.
Or we could drive by.
Excuse me, sir. I have one piece of business to do. We are running into overtime. I need a motion to sustain the meeting. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Cronmiller, this would be the motion to extend beyond 3 o'clock, beyond 3 hours, and beyond 5 o'clock. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We can continue. Now, Mr. LaFrance, now you can. Sorry, if I didn't get it in, I've only got 4 minutes to get that motion in. So.
Yeah, me and wife, we look at this property, we liked it very much, and drive through the property, and when we first came there, it looked like a little paradise.
You need to
into the microphone, sir. There we go. And close. Close.
And I'm John LaFrance. We're the owner of the property. And when we first looked at the place, it was for sale. We liked the place. It looked like a paradise. It was a guest house or something we wanted to retire with. And now we're looking at roads, demolishing buildings, and it's going to devalue the property. That I'm starting to look at that already. So with those considerations, That's all I wanted to make.
Okay. Thank you for your input, sir. Okay, moving back to the agenda. Item business 9, the Marina Perimeter Wall and Dredging Tender. Mr. Remenko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, I'm having requests for a break.
Okay.
Now that we have the... Oh, we have a live. We're soldiering on. Mr. Remenko, please, on the Marina Tender.
Okay, Marina Tender, Wall, and Dredging. The town of Osoyoos and Shoreline Developments have agreed to jointly cost-share development of a marina facility in the town of Osoyoos in the existing boat launch area on Spartan Drive. This agreement between the two parties was struck to enable the very public area in front of Watermark Development to maintain its natural aesthetic qualities. Osoyoos Shoreline Developments has agreed through mechanisms of a development covenant not to develop in front of their facility and entered into this cost-sharing arrangement. This project is time-sensitive in its approval process to meet Department of Fisheries regulations relating to the dredging of the lagoon and the disturbance of fish habitat. This project has gone through all environmental approvals, rezoning process, and Council has approved Phase 1 development permit. The following actions must be completed. Osoyoos Shoreline Development and the town must sign a marina development agreement that outlines the roles and responsibilities of each party in the construction process for Phase 1 of the marina. Council has reviewed a draft agreement and provided appropriate authority to sign the agreement on the condition that no substantial changes in principles of the agreement are requested by Osoyoos Shoreline Developments. This agreement is in final stages of negotiation and should be completed this week. Osoyoos Shoreline Developments and the town must sign a sublicense agreement to enable the Osoyoos Shoreline Development operational access to the land, and the province must approve the agreement and sublease agreement. The understandings provided by the province is that this approval is a formality. However, we are not certain on the length of time to get this approval of the documentation. In order to meet construction window, there may be a need to proceed with construction prior to receiving provincial approval of the documentation. The development of the boat slips will be completed on a separate tender. True Consulting attached tender review provides Council with an excellent review of the tenders, amounts received, and a recommendation to award to Grayback Construction. The tender amount identified by Grayback is $50,000 over budget. However, the report provides Council with an explanation of the differences and alternative strategies to address the over-budget figure. The majority of the over-budget figure comes from option to use colored concrete blocks and HST. The colored concrete block increases in amount of $40,000, and I think the HST is $8,000 or $9,000. Implications to community. The community stands to gain the development of a first-class marina and boat launch area. From an organizational perspective, there's an additional work to be completed by the administration and council to determine the public slips, how the public slips will be managed, and any bylaws that may be needed to facilitate enforcement in the area. This project is 50-50 cost shared with the Osoyoos Shoreline Developments. The town's portion of the funding is coming from reserves. The options presented by the administration to council are to accept the recommendation to award the contract to Grayback as presented at $532,932.96, accept the tender from Grayback, but decrease the amount through the direction to install plain instead of colored concrete blocks, accept the Grayback with the installation of keystone blocks, and the fourth option is to award the contract to another bidder. The administration is recommending option 3 with the rationale provided by True Consulting as the basis for the recommendation.
Council? Councilor Rhodes?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept option number 3, which would be to accept the Grayback pricing guidelines with the installation of the keystone blocks.
Seconder on that? Councilor Cronmiller? Discussion. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like a little explanation of the various kinds of blocks that we're talking about here and what this represents. There's a reference, for example, in the paragraph after the budget and the grayback tender are indicated that talks about $40,000 difference in the tender, and yet the tender is lower than the budget. So I'm not sure if I know what sheet pile is and what the keystone blocks are and coloring and so on. Could I get an explanation of what we're buying here?
Alan, the mic.
Sheet piling was off the table from Harry's point of view, looking at some form of perimeter wall,
right?
Box, and itemized real opportunity here to save some money, $40,500. Avoid using colored and textured blocks. Just to give you some image of what that would look like. Elm's wall would probably be constructed blocks. Excellent example. So the blocks that he's talking about would be colored. There was a discussion. He said, Waterfront Steering Committee thought that putting a large investment there entity. Well, so he's then created two sub options. In fact, you could save $3,000. That some examples that were attached in the package. I have a sore throat, but very sore throat. But yeah, there was Keystone standard units which were attached in the package. Council.
If I can just comment on that, looking at some of the ones that I believe that Mr. Romanko sent a photo around, they were actually hollow, putting them sort of into that Allen block wall situation. Kind of rough, tan, rough textured concrete.
Yeah, similar to the block that's been used on the retaining wall as you go up as the new sidewalk by McDonald's.
Yes.
That's the type of block that would be used. Again, various types of colors available,
but larger, diameters, I guess.
Well,
larger sizes.
I'm not sure about the sizes, but they're sufficient to do the job. That's I'm not too sure about the structural nature of them.
So that's what we're going for instead of the plain Jane kind of
that's right,
gray cement.
And the according to True Consulting, the using the Keystone blocks will be $3,000 cheaper than using the large blocks colored. So basically, your retaining wall will be, with the Keystone will be $3,000 cheaper than the colored blocks, colored big concrete blocks, and probably much more aesthetically pleasing to the area.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I've just got a couple of questions here. One of them would be when we look at the cost and the budget, and we've got that $464,000 figure, and then we have the grayback tender. And there was a testing estimate of $50,000 that really wasn't included in the 464, yet it is a part of that estimate. I mean, it was included in the 464, so that is a $50,000 overage, as is the $20,000 right above it is a $70,000 overage, and I would say you'd take the 9 off the HST, so there's about a $61,000 overrun on that when I look at the numbers as I see them. So, and this is, to me, this is tough when we're looking at. I just wish there was another week or so when we're looking at things like the high school issue out there, and I know we have the money is put aside here. It's already been set aside. It is in reserve, and we have some contractual obligations. I wish this was on the 27th of January, when we have a little more insight into what's happening. But having said that, that lagoon has to be done. We're either going to do it or it won't be usable. If it's not usable, I know people have come up to me on the street and said, fill it in. Well, I'd just like to reassure anyone out there that thinks you're going to fill that in. You will not fill that in with Department of Fisheries and Ocean, with the riparian folks, with the Provincial Ministry of the Environment. That will not be filled in. So if we don't do something now, I consider it an asset for the town, for boat launching, for people with boats, of which I don't own a boat. Well, I own a kayak, but I don't need that. But this is an asset, and really, truly, it's our responsibility to look after our asset. But Councillor Rhodes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just speaking in favor of the motion, I'd like to reassure anybody that has any concerns about riparian area damage, any kind of life that's present in that area right now will be removed in a very safe manner and reintroduced back into there. We've been able to see some of the background science that went into studying the removal of that material out of there, and believe me, it's thorough, concise, and there's nothing that's going to get by the people that are overseeing this, riparian or life-wise. Everything's going to be intact. At the end of the day, it's going to be a much better facility, I hate to bring this word up once again, but something that I believe is very sustainable.
Thanks, Mr. Councillor Rhodes. Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one thing I would add to this that I'm not sure that how it would be interpreted what you said, Mr. Mayor, but the funding for this project is in reserves, and it's in park reserves, so it would have no effect on decisions school by school.
Couldn't use it anywhere else anyway.
That's right. So it's only for parks. So
thank you. Now I feel better.
Okay. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
I guess I'm going to take another kick at this because I'm probably having the greatest difficulty with it. So I would like to say this is shared cost with Osoyoos Shoreline Development. So the town is putting forth half of that. Things are getting darn expensive out there. When we looked at that 87th Street realignment, reconstruction, sidewalks, move the poles, that little 2 blocks of pavement and curb and sidewalk, which looks spectacular, that was over $500,000 to do that. And that's just the cost that we're faced with as communities doing infrastructure work these days. Things are expensive. Another point I want to make very, very clear is that, and also I need an assurance from Mr. Romanko that when we went through, because it mentions the draft program here, the draft agreement, there was a situation where we had removed the words lakeside piers right out of the document. And is that, I guess my question is that so, Mr. Romanko?
Well,
or Mr. Cunningham?
Alan can provide me some backup on this, but in terms of the agreement is for the construction of the lagoon and the lagoon only.
Okay.
I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm leaning back because I need to. Okay, start again. We are altering the attached figure, which would form a schedule both to the joint agreement and also to the sub-license agreement. And what we've done is that we've clearly identified the limits of the so-called project. That is defined, the definitions, and the project is limited to 32 sleeps. So we're putting a line around that, and it will say the project vertical. Also identify the northern developer slips and the southern town slips.
Okay. And I guess that's, and so that will not be, because it was in the draft and we X'd it out, and I know it was a comfort level for counselors that be removed. So we're talking, excuse me again, we're talking about the F fingers and piers in the lake. That's not a part of this program. If people want piers in the lake down the road, that'll be a whole different set of circumstances and a whole different council by the time we get this done. So the people that were worried about the piers in the future.
The only allowance which is made, and we discussed this last time, is that obviously the developer would like some comfort that if in fact a future council did ever choose to proceed with one of the Fs or both of them, that they would get first right of refusal and share. That's the intent of the legal language we have right now.
Okay, anything further? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm just fading here.
I just come in, Councillor Chadsey with a phone in her ear. That she's
no kidding. Number 10. Number 10, the Gyro Beach license to use. Sunflight Parasailing has been using a portion of Gyro Beach since 1982. They have been granted use of this property on a year-to-year basis. A request for proposals was placed in the Osoyoos Times. 3 proposals were received. These proposals were Lunatico Board Shop. This would be the rent that they're paying the town of Osoyoos to use that parasailing site on Gyro Beach. Lunatico Board Shop, $2,000 per annum. ATB Water Sports, $1,500 per annum. And Sunflight Parasailing, $1,500 per annum. The proposal from Lunatico included rentals of all water sports, did not request any improvements, but requires that a 20-foot container for storage be placed on the property for the duration of the term and not removed until September 30th. The proposal from ATB Water Sports offers all-inclusive water sport packages, including boat driver lessons, wakeboard surfing, water skiing, may be required to moor on the shore during business hours and may not need the property every day, willing to share with another business. Sunflight, which is the current operator, Sunflight Parasailing proposes including the parasailing, big banana, water skiing, wakeboard, charters. They require a trailer on site only during business hours, which would be removed at night, willing to share with another business. ATB and Sunflight proposals are within the requirements set out in the RFP. However, Lunatico Board Shop requirement for an on-site trailer being permanently placed for the term with the property not being cleared until September 30th is outside of the parameters set out. Therefore, it is not suggested that this proposal be considered. The proposals set out by ATB and Sunflight are very similar, including lease fee. Sunflight has had a good reputation with the community, and the town has not had any problems with cleanup, damage to the property, or any other issues that would warrant not giving them another turn for use of the property. Sunflight has worked with Cherry Fiesta to ensure that the fireworks could be set up, take place in that location, and has even closed down for that day or shut down early to permit the setup. In speaking with the Planning and Development Services Department, riparian issues with regard to the Lunatico and ATB proposals may also arise, which could trigger a detailed riparian assessment, which is not preferred at this time. It was also not recommended that more than one business be permitted to operate from the lands at the same time. Implications to the community. Of course, we're going to lose that portion of the beach, but we haven't had that portion of the beach for 20 years now. Organizational non-budget implications, $1,500 of revenue to the town. And there are 4 options there for council to make some resolutions on, please. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I read through this report with a great deal of interest, and I think at this time I'd like to make a motion that council accept the proposal from Lunatico Board Sports, I think, or Board Shop for the use of Jarwood Park from the period May 15th, 2011 to September 30th of 2011 at the rate provided, which is $2,000.
Seconder for that? Councillor Ryan. Discussion, please. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So speaking in favor of that motion, I struggled with the reasons regarding the supposed disqualification from it, that being September 30th. I kind of viewed this as being a way of extending the season down there a little bit. I have no reason to disbelieve that that was not the purpose of it. And the other matter regarding the type of structure that was down there, I'm not sure how that would trigger a riparian assessment. That's not really been made clear to me in the report, unless there's some mitigating circumstances. I would see a trailer on wheels being brought in and out of there doing an equal amount of riparian damage, or at least have an equal amount of riparian opportunity for damage as the permanence of one, and might even suggest that permanent, when I speak of permanent, I'm not talking year-round within the confines of those dates, might be a better opportunity for less riparian damage, simply because it's only brought in there once and taken out once during the season. So with those 2 points in mind, I'm supporting the motion.
I'll speak in favor of the motion also. I just think we've been trying to get some competitive bids down there for years. Finally get some, and I don't think that that's a strong enough rationale to be disqualifying somebody. That trailer, every time, when they're in operation, the trailer's there every day anyway, driving across this, Councillor Rhodes said. So if in my mind, that's not a disqualification, and then they were the high bidder, so I'm looking at. Councillor Ryan?
Yes, likewise, they're the higher bidder, so I think we have to have a good reason, and I don't know quite how they would operate. I know the other Sunflight has done almost exclusively the parasailing, I think, and they do take off with the passenger on the shore and then go up in the air. But it would have been really helpful if it had been given some specifics as to why a riparian assessment might be required, or why they might do damage, and so on. And hopefully the location of that container that they are going to keep their equipment in can be properly placed so that it doesn't interfere with some of the other activities around there. So I don't have any good reason at this point not to choose them.
And maybe if moving it is that important, maybe they'll move it too. I don't see it being that important to move. Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd speak in opposition of this motion, against the motion. I think that 20-foot trailer or not even a trailer, 20-foot box probably, that sit down out there it sits there for 3 or 4 months of the year, is not something I want to look at in my park. A trailer that's brought in by vehicle and leaves every day and is there for their duration of their business and goes is a lot easier to look at than a big 20-foot box, aluminum box probably, sitting there. And also till the end of September, which I think is no need for that. I also think that Sunflight parasailing has been a good citizen of the community and a good client of the town for many years. And in my past life as a operator of a police boat on the lake, they were very much an assistance to us and eyes and ears out there on the lake, and very cooperative with the police. They presented a very good product, and as they've said here, they clean up. They've been good, looked after the beach for us, and I think that they've been very valid customers. And when I think to bring in somebody new, putting a box there and then not knowing what kind of client they are, I have some difficulty with going with a new one just for the sake of $500 a month.
Yeah, fair comment. Good comments. Councillor Chadsey, any input, please? I'm sorry, could you repeat that? The motion is to award the contract to Luna Tico for $2,000. Yes.
Against the motion, we've had a relationship for almost 20 and I hate to, for the sake of 5 years old, ridiculous to I don't see a lot of change here that's any.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Romanko.
Could I just clarify, maybe, Alain, would you know placing, and again, because Jeanette isn't here, we can't clarify because she reviewed the proposals as to the nature of the trailer. Is it one of these containers that is going to be dropped or anything? But I guess the issue that I'm just seeking some information. In terms of the riparian aspect, the placement of some type of non-wheeled structure that's going to be sitting there, would that draw the need for a development permit that would and then kick in some riparian process?
Well, I wasn't involved in formulating this particular recommendation, so if I had a comment on it intelligently, I would have to go back to our riparian area regulations development permit and start off by identifying what is a so-called development, the lengthy list of it. And I would have to presume, but I would have to, of course, confirm that that would be regarded as something significant within the 30-meter valuation area, the lakefront. It also raises a question as to whether some of the activities of the competitors would also be raised as a development quote that should be appraised. But a big metal box, I think, kind of stands out on its own.
Well, hopefully, in my mind, it's going to be one of those very nice wheeled cargo trailers that you see hauling what those new generation of cargo trailers that haul horses and things. And, yeah. Councilor Ryan, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we table this to our next meeting and ask the staff to revise a report answering some of the concerns and questions that council has raised.
Okay. Councilor Cronmiller?
Second.
Okay. That was a tabling motion or postponing?
Next meeting?
Means whether we can
postponed?
Well, it means whether we can debate or not.
Motion.
No, the motion is to either table or
Well, I was tabling, and I understand tabling it goes to the next meeting
automatically.
Yeah. Automatically. Yes. And I just added. Okay. Well, I added another that we asked for a.
Then it should be a motion to postpone.
Okay. If that's the proper
to that
motion.
date.
But again, as it you to that, come back with more. do you want to postpone your decision based on? Do you want more?
Okay, I think personally, I think we need more information on the issues of the type of container and the any riparian issues that might be precipitated by their activity. So that would be a postponement then.
Okay. Councilor Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only if the original motion is still intact, because I would be in fear of the report coming back without that component added on it.
Mr. Mayor, I think that
Well,
the
now
explanation.
you're not getting that.
Yeah.
I want to do motion.
Okay, so two motions.
Wait, this, yeah. Also have
Motion for additional. Okay.
And to be fair, I would suggest that it says for something to extent of staff reviewing the relative comparative impacts of each of the proposals.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
So now we have the motion to postpone
Postpone.
to February 7th. All in favor? Opposed? Marg? Aye. Postponed. Second motion coming. Councillor Ryan?
Yes, I would now move, Mr. Mayor, that staff be directed to provide us with a relative assessment of the merits of the three proponents, with particular attention to the issues that Council has raised.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Cronmiller. All in favor? Opposed? That is also carried. Are we ever going to be done here, folks? Okay, rolling right along here. Like a yes. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Chadsey. Thank you. Okay, business 11, general local elections. Section 41 of Local Government Act requires council to appoint a chief election officer and deputy chief election officer for the purposes of conducting an election. And of course, this is because there are fall elections coming up in that third Saturday in November of this calendar year. It does have it there for us. In the past, the general local elections have been conducted by either the Director of Finance or the Director of Corporate Services. 2008, Janet Van Vienna was appointed Chief Election Officer, with Jim Zackel appointed as Deputy. Both directors have the full knowledge and capability of conducting an election. The 2000 general local elections will be held on November the 19th, 2011. It is being recommended that the elections be conducted in-house again. If we go outside of that, we would have to pay somebody. So we're using staff on this. The budget has been set at $16,400 for running the election. And there are some options there for council. What is council's wishes? Councillor Cronmiller.
I'll move option 1.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Rhodes. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Could I just clarify for the people and the viewing audience that option 1 is that corporate officer Janet Van Vienen will be appointed chief electoral officer, and finance manager Jim Zackel will be appointed deputy. Just so that for clarification.
No, that's great. That's great.
Trying to.
After 3.5 hours here, I can take some tune-up. Okay, paying some bills, general Sun Bowl payroll accounts. There's some recommendations here to approve the general fund cash requirements in the amount of $862,222.65. to approve the Sun Bowl Fund cash requirements in the amount of $11,233.68, and to accept net payroll accounts in the amount of $130,380.24 for the period of December 11th, 2010 to January the 7th, 2011. Received that for information. Looking for a resolution from Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Ryan. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, adopted by consensus. And that brings up the first, I'll do my building permits and then your report. Town of Osoyoos summary of building permits. Estimated value of $9,000 on Main Street. Looks like one of our stores down there. Dr. Calder, looks like a little renovation in the amount of $20,000. And Valley Trend, I don't know what this is, $108,000 building permit on Lobelia. So the total for the month was $137,000. And I'm not going to do the total to dates because they're actually previous. So motion to receive, Councillor Cronmiller, Ryan, all in favor, opposed, we have received that. CAO's report, Mr. Romanko, please.
Very quickly, the CAO will just identify a few activities. In terms of the community development area, they've been focusing on promoting and delivering the sustainability plan community event that happened this weekend. Also working with Mark Pendergraph, Area A Director, on the seasonal workers camp. In terms of the corporate services, the draft of the Good Neighbor Bylaw is not completed, having met with RCMP Bylaw and the Community Development Manager, so that'll be coming to Council very, very shortly. Finance has been reworking the Osoyoos Indian Band Fire Agreement, and that will be coming to Council probably next meeting. Planning and Development was working with had the third meeting of the Lake Recreational Commercial Use Task Force, and they're moving ahead in that project very well. Recreation had a site visit scheduled for the window replacements in regard to the gas tax funding. There were 14 businesses who attended the preliminary review, with 4 of those being from Osoyoos. And myself completed and submitted the Towns for Tomorrow funding application within the deadline, and also initiated contact with Ministry of Transportation to discuss some highway improvements. My report.
Great, thank you. So we'll have some councillor reports, starting with Councillor Chadsey, who isn't here. So Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have quite a long report, but I'm going to defer it to the next meeting. Hopefully it'll be as pertinent then as it is now, only because of the time of day. Wanted to say 2 quick things. Happy New Year to everyone. This is our first meeting into the new year. Time flies. We blink our eyes, and it's already the 3rd week of the new year. And secondly, to thank everyone who attended our sustainability function this past weekend. A great group of people that came out, well motivated, and I'm hoping that we can draw some of the ideas that were brought forward and make them an important part of our community planning in the future.
Thanks, Councillor Rhodes. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'd like to echo Councillor Rhodes and wish everyone a happy New Year, health and happiness throughout the months of this year. I want to just congratulate our staff, Jim Newman, and the Development Services staff and the others who were involved in a wonderful workshop that they put on Friday and Saturday, and especially all those who attended. A lot of people came, they dropped in and out and so on, but I was just so impressed by the ideas, people thinking outside the box, very passionate about everything. And so I just want to advise you that that will be on our town website, and there will be a special little corner on the main website that you can follow if you didn't attend, you can still read the results of that workshop. So please do that, and congratulations and thanks to those that were involved.
Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too had a big long story today, and unfortunately, maybe fortunately, you're not going to hear it all. Being late in the day, I go, huh. And, this culminates a week that was very busy for all of the councilors, starting last Monday with 2 meetings, and I skipped Tuesday, and then Wednesday I had a meeting with the school district that was successful, and the mayor's rubbing his forehead. And I know he's not well today, so I won't go too long. I just wanted to, again, also reiterate that the sustainability workshop was, I really did enjoy it. A lot of fun, a lot of good input, and the only thing I wanted to emphasize is the dynamic of it. That I think that there's a lot of people missing, and I hope that they'll, as Councillor Ryan said, go to our website, look on sustainability. It's really obvious. You can't miss it. There's a nice green tab there. And keep track of what's happening with that. And also, there's an opportunity there for input, too, to provide your input if you weren't there on the weekend, and you get the hang of it, of what's happening with this plan. Add your input and to it that you can have it, because I think there's a cross-section of our younger community that should have some input, because if I'm here in 20 years, I'll be real happy. And that's my report.
Thanks, Councillor Cronmiller. Yeah, it's been a busy time, and that sustainability conference was really good. It's certainly recharged my batteries again in regards to affordable housing. Hearing some people there that had some new information on what they're doing gets all that going. And when we look at recapturing and strengthening our economy here, I really think that's one way that we can do it, would be to get some housing here. If people got housing, that's a good start. Comfortable place, and we have to keep working on the job aspects and things like that. So I'm going to keep it fair. Oh, one of the things that I want to just very briefly mention on the sustainability was the number. I was very, very happy with the number. I don't know, everyone else had their own opinion, but the people that came out on both nights, I was happy with the number. On the Saturday, I was really pleased with the diversity of the people that came. And that goes from people that were born here 65 years ago to one couple that are building a house up at the golf course, have been here 4 months. So when you look at the range that we had out there, and there was a real great young person component, young mums and dads with kiddies, and then some high school students and people in between. So a lot of young people came. And to me, that was really rewarding, that they came out and went through this. I mean, it is their community, it is their future, but it was just great to see them there. I think that's basically all I have to say. Looking for a motion to adjourn. It was all in one breath. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Ryan, all in favor. We're adjourned. Good night, folks. It's getting to be good night, too.